We have some weird news regarding Jamar Chase. I really need your opinion on it. Obviously, I have Chase in the Flock League, so I'm a little nervous. Chase is not planning on negotiating this contract anymore with Cincinnati. So I see some people panicking saying, oh my gosh, that means Jamar Chase and Cincinnati, they're done. Chase is out of... I don't know. I think maybe it just is more in line with, okay, it is very weird for a wide receiver that has 2 years left of team control on his deal to get a new contract. Chase maybe realizes that it's not going to get done, and Chase is willing to play this season. That's what I'm hoping. I would really love to know what y'all think, but we need to go and get this stream started and start answering some of these questions over on flockfantasy.com. So let's go ahead and pull this up. It's a super flex. We only have 4 bench spots and no IR. Should we roll with 2 quarterbacks, and should we throw one of our flex options in for the super flex? Hell no, definitely going to go ahead, play Zach Charbonnet here. Looks like Kenneth Walker is going to be missing this next game. Addison's already out. Puka's out. Higgins is out. It's really between Charbonnet versus Deontay Johnson. So I think we're going to go ahead very easily, take Charbonnet. And you still definitely want to be playing Darnold's here at quarterback. That's not really going to be something we need to worry too much about. But let's go over and check out our next question. It's going to be from Brock. Says, Malik Neighbors, Isaiah Likely versus Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's super, super easy for me. Don't even have to think twice about this. It is St. Brown by a very wide margin here, my friend. I'm not worried about St. Brown at all. I think St. Brown's still going to be crushing this season. Let's go ahead and let's dive into this next team from Sheba Enos. This is a team review. And of course, real quick, if you want to ask any start sit questions, any trade questions, if you want a team review, you can do all of that over on flockfantasy.com. And if you don't know, the cheapest way to get a team review is actually taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy. Or if you go over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK and make a $10 deposit, you're going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you'll be getting a free team review through flockfantasy.com and a free pick'em CeeDee Lamb more than less than half a total yard. So you can find that link in the description, ladies and gentlemen. But let's go ahead and let's move back over to what we have with this squad. This is a league where we're going to start 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end, and a single flex spot. So obviously, we're in a very comfortable situation going into this week where you have James Cook popping off. Looks like Lamb's going to be in a much better spot against New Orleans Saints team that can hopefully keep this game a little bit closer in week 2. I think that this is a team that most likely is winning this week. But nonetheless, since you only have 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, definitely want to be prioritizing grabbing some top-end running backs, hopefully a top-end quarterback, a top-end tight end, and we are going to disregard the wide receiver depth in this format. But quarterback, we are currently sitting with Jared Goff. Really do like Goff here. Going down to the bench, we are looking at no other quarterback. So I would say that specifically for this bench construction, I'm fine with only rostering Jared Goff, even if I would probably prefer someone a little better in a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. In other league formats, I definitely think it'd be an advantageous spot to roster 2 quarterbacks and play the matchups. But if you're telling me we only have 4 bench spots, I'd imagine there are great quarterbacks on the waiver wire. I'd imagine you could go through and cycle if you really needed to. Now, going over to wide receiver, you currently are sitting with CeeDee Lamb, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, all in the lineup. I mean, obviously, 3 guys we can start every single week, especially with DJ Moore. Now, I do think it's going to be in a much better spot going into the future. You have the Rome injury, the Keenan injury, and I think Caleb's probably going to have more than 93 passing yards per game going forward. And then looking at the depth at receiver, we have Ridley, we have Deontay Johnson. Deontay was that sell high guy for me going into the season. Now you're just simply not going to get anything for him. But if you're looking at Calvin Ridley, I think there is still that outside chance that you could get an appealing price tag. So if you could potentially package together Ridley with Jared Goff to go pivot to a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, somebody that does have rushing upside, I would be very interested in that. Now, you don't include your league settings here for passing, however. So I will say if this is a boosted quarterback scoring in either 6 points passing touchdown, maybe 1 point per 20 passing yards rather than 1 point per 25, then at that point, I really like Goff. I'm just saying in a regular 4-point passing touchdown format, 1 point per 25 passing yards there, I'd probably prefer the rusher. But to be fair, Jared Goff has a projection of 30 points in this week in this format. So I'd imagine that this is probably a quarterback volume, boosted scoring, but wide receiver, we're chilling, of course. And then going over to running back, we have James Cook, we have Alvin Kamara. I really like both these running backs as RB2s. James Cook is an RB1. Obviously, he absolutely crushes this week. I don't necessarily know if I love having James Cook as my running back one rest of season. I think I have him ranked as RB11. We can actually head over to flockfantasy.com and see this real quick. That was Dynasty, but let's pivot over to redraft. And yeah, at running back, I do have James Cook actually ranked at RB12 rest of season. So, I mean, if I had him as my RB2, I love it in a 12-team format. If he's my running back one, probably not as excited for it. But yeah, we can get by with James Cook, Alvin Kamara looking at the bench. We have Nick Chubb for the long-term upside. We have Ray Davis and Tank Bigsby. So there's just some handcuff backs. I would imagine, since this is a league where you only have 4 bench spots, though, that you could actually pick up some more premium handcuff running backs off the waiver wire. And I wouldn't just want Ray Davis only because you have James Cook. If there's somebody like Tyler Algier out there that we've actually seen produce to that elite level when the starter goes down in front of him, I would actually probably pivot off if we could. And then going over to tight end, we only have Evan Ingram. Obviously, Ingram's very concerning after week 1. I mean, if you could possibly take that depth receiver with Calvin Ridley and package with Evan Ingram to go get to a tight end that you're a little more excited about, I think that could be an appealing play. But obviously, the tight end position is kind of a wasteland right now. But I think the main thing is if we can take the Ridley value, upgrade inside the starting lineup, and then look for a different running back duo off waivers other than Ray Davis and Tank Bigsby, specifically because it's a league with only 4 bench spots. But thank you again, my friend. Really do appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out in some way there. But let's move over to this next one. Says, hey, Mason, hope you're having a good one, bro. Wanted your thoughts on this trade. Need some better RB depth. Okay, well, right now I'm valuing Chuba Hubbard almost at a 0. If you're looking at Chuba Hubbard, this is a running back that's splitting with Miles Sanders in the worst offense in the NFL. So I would be completely fine adding Hubbard any deal. There's no way he's coming close to my starting lineup anytime soon. Kirk versus J.K. Dobbins. Honestly, kind of up to you. I mean, if you're telling me we really need running back depth, I think you can go ahead and take J.K. Dobbins. I think you do have enough upside there. Now, Kobe says, full PPR, the offer is Devonta Smith and Jordan Mason for Amon-Ra St. Brown. We have Allen, Rashad, Montgomery, so we need some running back upside. This is interesting. So obviously he doesn't add Jordan Mason to the trade question here for whatever reason. If y'all could help me out, can you spam the chat? Would you rather have Devonta Smith and Jordan Mason, or would you rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown? Would you rather have Smith and Mason or St. Brown? Please let me know in the live chat. Okay. Let's see what people are saying. St. Brown, Smith, St. Brown, Smith, and Mason. I honestly think it's a very fair deal. It seems like most people are going with the Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you threw it into the trade calculator right now, I'm sure it will tell you that Amon-Ra St. Brown is the value you want there. I don't know. It is a tough spot, my friend. I think I'm going to go ahead. I think I'll actually take Smith and Mason. Now that you officially have CMC on the IR, Mason projects to be that low-end RB1, high-end RB2. And if you're telling me we need running back production, I think you can go for it. Slush Monkey, always out here asking questions, says, love the new layout on the website. Debating on QB and slightly debating on the flex with Smith and London. All right, so let's go ahead and let's check this out. Quarterback, it's Goff versus Baker Mayfield. Obviously, Baker, phenomenal game last week. If you're looking at the spread on this contest, though, right now, the Lions are favored by pretty much a touchdown. The Lions have the highest implied team total of any offense in the NFL this week with 29 points. So, honestly, I think it's kind of an easier spot to go ahead and take Jared Goff. And then going down to the flex between Smith and Drake London, I think I could have made an argument for London before the A.J. Brown injury, but post A.J. Brown injury, I do think I'm going to stick with Smith, my friend. Let's move over to our next question. This is a trade question from JD. So try to attach into Yahoo League, but it wasn't working. If you're having any issues attaching your league, please just send it in the site issues on the Discord, and I'm sure one of the developers would be happy to help you out, my friend. Says, I was offered Rodgers and a 10th round pick next year for Lawrence. Do I take it? It's a 2-player keeper, super flex league. Honestly, if it's a super flex format, I'm not going to be overthinking this. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to get the best player. The 10th round pick isn't going to do much for us. Obviously, Rodgers looked pretty bad week 1, but it was a tough matchup against the Niners. I do expect Rodgers to be better going into the future, but I still think Lawrence is almost a no-brainer call here. Let's go over our next question coming out from HBK Cade. Says, I fumbled hard and forgot to move Keon to my wide receiver slot, so he is stuck in the flex. I know, rookie mistake, but do I start Charbonnet over ETN? So I do just want to remind everybody here. I know you already know this, but just going into the future, for everybody watching this, don't play anybody that plays on Thursday night in your flex. Even if you think like, oh, Keon Coleman's way worse than my other receivers, you still put Keon Coleman at wide receiver 1 or 2 and then move Marvin Harrison Jr. or move Zay Flowers down to the flex. Because then when you have Charbonnet pop off and super appealing with no Kenneth Walker, then you can take out Zay Flowers and put Charbonnet in. But when you played your Thursday night guy in the flex spot, then at that point you are really limited with that flexibility. And that's why it's called the flex. Nonetheless, I'm still probably going to go ahead. I'm just going to take Travis Etienne. I do really like Zach Charbonnet this week, my guy. But with Charbonnet, he is primarily a projection, whereas we've seen it with Etienne time and time again. So I think you can safely go ahead and take Travis. Now let's move over to our next trade question. Right now, this is coming out from John. Says, current starter is Baker. Running backs are Mason, JT, and Walker. So we are upgrading from Caleb to Jaden Daniels, but paying Ramondre Stevenson to do so, I think you're just paying too much. If you wanted to go Caleb and Ramondre, instead, I think we're going to be looking at guys in the Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud range. I don't necessarily know if we throw Jaden Daniels up there just yet. I would prefer Stevenson over Daniels, even though I don't mind trying to upgrade at quarterback. I just think you should probably go for a higher end upgrade. But let's go ahead and let's answer some of the free questions in the live chat. Then we can get back to the questions on the site real quick. Hunter says, chat, Colby Parkinson or Trey McBride this week. Please don't overthink this. You just want to go ahead. You want to take Trey McBride. Not even close here, my friend. I know Parkinson is possibly an interesting streamer, but not somebody you're wanting to consider over the elite options. Brandon says, Manning or Ewers? So obviously, I have to hit y'all with the classic hook 'em horns. Great day to be at Texas Longhorn. I didn't want to come out here and celebrate too much. Obviously, we played UTSA. I said we were going to win by 60. We ended up only winning by 49. But if y'all wanted to see a little something here, let's go ahead and let's pull up our Texas Longhorns. Let's look at this. The main story is obviously Ewers. 12 pass attempts, 223 passing yards with 4 passing touchdowns. Sorry, Manning. And what's crazy too is Manning had the long rushing touchdown to go along with it. You had Manning coming out, showing you the wheels. It was beautiful. Got some good highlights going. But I'm very excited to see a full year of Manning next year. Okay. Now, Noah the Goat says Rashee Rice or Devonta Smith. So looking at my flex rankings, I did have Rice ahead of Smith pre-A.J. Brown injury. But if we think A.J. Brown's potentially going to be missing Monday nights, it's a completely fine spot if you wanted to pivot over to Devonta Smith. Let me see, does Underdog have any projections with the Eagles right now? I'm assuming they don't have anything out because the A.J. Brown injury. I'm assuming they're waiting for clarity. So they have Jalen Hurts, 234.5 passing yards, higher or lower. Yeah, but they don't have anything with the receivers. So they are just waiting for news regarding A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. You have Barkley. Yeah, they even took down some of the main picks with Barkley. Like, you can't even look at Barkley total yards right now. Yeah, so hopefully we get some clarity on that relatively soon, of course. Okay. C. Stevie says, London and Moss for Pollard. I have Barkley already. I would rather have Drake London over Tony Pollard rest of season. I think Tony Pollard is going to be coming back down to earth in a big time way once we actually get the Tennessee Titans trailing some of these games. They were leading against the Bears 17-0, which set up a perfectly fine Tony Pollard game, but I don't know if that'll be the case going into the future. But let's go ahead. Let's run through some more of these questions on flockfantasy.com. And of course, like I said, if you want to ask any questions, you can do so on flockfantasy.com. You can ask a start sit question, trade question. You can get a full-blown team review. But I do remind y'all, definitely the cheapest way to get that team review is actually just going through going through Underdog Fantasy. And if you take advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy, if you use promo code FLOCK, you are going to make a $10 deposit. You're going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. You'll get a free CD Lamb pick, more than less than half a total yard. And on top of that, you'll get a free team review over on flockfantasy.com. You just need to make sure you set up a flockfantasy.com account. It can be a completely free account with the same email address that you deposited $10 on Underdog with code FLOCK. That way, when Underdog gets me those emails the next day, I can go through and I can hook you up with your free team review voucher. But our Pratt says we got to bench one guy between Metcalf, Mason, and Aaron Jones. I actually think with Jordan Addison being out, I know this sounds weird, you just have a little bit of a more guaranteed receiving role for Aaron Jones in this backfield, as really you only have Jefferson. So I think we actually probably go ahead and bench DK Metcalf here. But Brazy coming out with a trade question. We already answered this trade question for Brazy with this similar. My guy, please do not be sending me this again. They do not send here's my team, here's their team, come up with a deal. If we're trying to go through and I guess the thing is I don't know who do you want to trade for here? Guys, I don't have interest in trading for right now. Tony Pollard. I had Worthy as a sell high candidate. I don't think you want to sell him now that you have the Hollywood injury. I don't think you can sell Waddle with the Tua injury. I mean, the guy that I would be looking to sell on this list would actually be Jaden Reed. And if we're really going to pick up, I would sell Jaden Reed for literally any of these players over here. Obviously, your best shot at getting somebody would be Tank Dell. But if you could sell Jaden Reed for Tank Dell, I would go ahead and do that, my friend. But I think that would be my favorite possible trade out of that list. Now, Zachary says, first year playing fantasy, I have wide receiver 2 in the flex spots open, considering DJ Moore, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Brandon Ayuk. Okay, so this is very interesting here. Yeah, Terry McLaurin, you can't start at this point. Between Moore, Harrison, and Ayuk, DJ Moore does look to be in a very good spot, but with both the Keenan and Rome injuries, they activated Colin Johnson, so it looks like at least one of Keenan or Rome will be out of this game. If you're looking at where I ranked Harrison versus Brandon Ayuk this week, I had Ayuk at 27 in the flex rankings. I had Marvin Harrison Jr. at 37. I do think it's closer than that, though. You actually have a nice implied team total with the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Rams. Should be a good matchup here. I do think you go ahead and take Brandon Ayuk. We've seen Ayuk be elite in fantasy before. We have not seen that from Harrison. Harrison's still a projection I feel comfortable with, but I don't think you have to roll the dice with Ayuk there. Great matchup. Now let's go over to Hank. Hank has a trade question here. So obviously this is post-Tua injury. If it was a situation where Tua was fully healthy, it would be Tyreek Hill and David Montgomery by a mile. But honestly, if Tua is going to miss 6+ weeks, I think you go ahead and you take Saquon Barkley. If Tua is going to miss 6+ weeks, I think Tyreek goes from being, the wide receiver 1 to now a low-end wide receiver 1 in those games that Tua is gone in. Now, Christopher coming out says, I don't know how to add players, but the trade is Addison and Mason for Baker and Myers. Just locks Tua and feel like my team is still strong, just missing quarterback. What do you think? So this is a super flex league. So with this being a super flex league, going from Addison to Jacoby Myers is a downgrade. Going from Jordan Mason to Baker Mayfield, I feel like is a lateral move. I'm fine with you going on the Baker side, but I do want to take out Addison and Myers. I just want to trade Jordan Mason for Baker Mayfield. If you're telling me, hey, I'm desperate for a quarterback in a super flex league, obviously if it's a one quarterback format, it's Jordan Mason very easily. But super flex league, I'll take the Baker side if you lost to it and you need a quarterback. But I do want to reiterate, I don't think you should also be trading Addison for Myers if we don't have to. Now, Jake VD coming out with a question says, having trouble deciding between Smith and Mason. Traded Garrett Wilson and James Conner for Chase and Rice. Phenomenal there, my friend. But yeah, if you're looking at this, I think you probably end up having to go ahead and take Jordan Mason, even with the A.J. Brown injury. Now, I'm hoping that Smith comes out here and absolutely crushes it. I have a lot on the line in the Flock League this week. I've talked so much nonsense. Now we have a bet on the game as well. So I'm really hoping that Smith comes through for us, especially with the Brown injury. But Mason, you just know exactly what the workload's going to look like. It's going to be a great offense. Can y'all spam the chats? Would you rather have Jordan Mason or Devonta Smith? Would you rather have Mason or Smith? And Aleem, obviously, when I traded for Hollywood, my guy, he was not on the IR. When I traded for Hollywood, the assumption was he was going to be back this week or next. Okay. Smith, Mason. Mason, Smith, 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 Mason, Smith, Smith, Mason. Smith, Mason, 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 Mason. It does look like most people are in there with Mason as well, my friend. But let's move this over. Guy in my league is Puka and A.J. Brown, trying to trade Rice and Dell for A.J. He's down bad with injuries. 100%, if you can go ahead and you get A.J. Brown here. Sounds like Brown may be missing a week. If A.J. Brown misses a week and you pivoted off for Rashee Rice and that depth receiver to go ahead and get A.J. Brown, I think that is a no-brainer, and we will go ahead and we'll make that move, my friend. We'll make that move. We got Danny out in the chat. Happy to see you, my friend. Happy to see you. But let's move over. Bang Bros coming out with our next question. I mean, this is a full-blown team review. Says, feel like I won the draft, but somehow have been cursed by every injury. I lost Puka, and now with Tua down, Waddle seems useless. Higgins is also out. Wondering if I should be patient with the injuries and use my receiver depth to go for trades with what I have. I got Brees at the 109 and Achane in the 4th round. Okay, well, if that's happened, that's why we are sitting here with the number 1 team in the league analyzer, my friend. I was sitting here thinking, okay, is this analyzer broken? If we've been hit with the injury bug across the board, how do we have the number 1 team? Yeah, it's when you get 4th round Devon Achane. It's when you get Brees Hall at pick 9. But anyway, this is a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. My guy, so with this being a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, the issues that you're going to have specifically with your wide receiver depth, honestly, do not matter at all. Like, I could kind of care less about a couple of our wide receiver 2s missing a little bit of time in the short term here. Obviously, if this was a situation in which, I don't know, you were going to have to deal with a 12-team league where you start 2 receivers and 2 flex spots, and it's a full PPR format, and you're dealing with a couple injuries where depth's harder to come by. Completely understand kind of panicking there. But just in a format like this, this is exactly where you can get away and say, oh, okay, I don't necessarily care if T. Higgins misses some time. We're just chasing upside anyway. But yeah, looking at this position by position, Lamar, obviously, great spot. You can start Lamar every single week, regardless of matchup. Really no hesitation there. Going over to running back, we have the RB1 in fantasy. We have Brees Hall. We have who looks to be a top 3 running back at this point. I didn't think Achane had top 3 running back upside. But, I mean, he's coming out, and he is 100% proving it with his receiving role. So we have 2 anchor running backs. Behind this, the depth is almost non-existent. Going over to wide receiver, we have London, Waddle, Higgins, Brian Thomas Jr., Terry McLaurin, Ladd McConkey, and then Demarcus Robinson. So really the only thing I think we can say with this team is I understand that we've kind of been brutalized just a bit when it comes to the wide receiver injuries that we are dealing with. But at the same time, I think you are almost overreacting in a way if you go out and you start rostering guys like Demarcus Robinson. Like, what can Demarcus Robinson ever do to get inside your starting lineup here? Pretty much be impossible for Demarcus Robinson to ever really make a difference for you on this squad. So I'd way rather cut Demarcus Robinson, pick up another running back. I know we're dealing with the Puka injury. Maybe you don't want to start Waddle with the Tua injury. T. Higgins banged up as well, but you're still starting Drake London, Brian Thomas, Terry McLaurin. Or you're still starting Drake London, Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey. Or you're still starting Drake London, Terry McLaurin, Ladd McConkey. There's no world you start DeMarcus Robinson. And this is plus, considering T. Higgins may be back next week. Jalen Waddle with Tua. While a lot of people are assuming that Tua's done skis, there's an outside chance that Tua misses 3 weeks this year and then makes it back, whether you think he should or not. That could potentially happen. So I know the wide receiver depth maybe looks a little bit questionable. My thing is, in this format, the wide receiver depth just simply doesn't matter. And I would way rather just go ahead, drop DeMarcus Robinson, pick up another running back. Tight end, we have Pitts, and then we have Hawkinson on the IR, so obviously we're chilling at tight ends. It's a phenomenal team. Obviously, when you hit on those anchor running backs at the top with Breece and Achane, it gives you a lot of leeway, especially in a 10-team league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. If this was a different format, I'd be worried, but I don't think you have to be concerned here. I think you still have a great team, and I honestly think you're rostering too many receivers. I'll let go of the bottom guy and get another running back. But let's go ahead and let's pull up some of the free questions that we have in the live chat right now. But should I drop Greg Dortch for Tyreek Hill in a 32-team league? Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me, my guy? Greg Dortch is the freaking man. I don't care who is available out there on waivers. You are considering dropping Greg Dortch? Have you ever played fantasy football before? Clearly you have not. This is embarrassing. If you drop Greg Dortch in a league I was in with you, I'd ban you from the league for eternity. But Miguel says Godwin or London rest of season. I would go ahead. I would take Drake London there. And I want to ask y'all something in the live chat because I brought this up at the very beginning of the live stream. We didn't get into it too much. But obviously, we had the report with Jamar Chase, where Jamar Chase is no longer going to be negotiating a contract with the Cincinnati Bengals this offseason. Please let me know in the chat, does this matter? So obviously, I have Chase in the Flock League. Trust me, I get any Jamar Chase news, I get a little scared. I saw people on Twitter spazzing about the Chase news, thinking like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden, this is going to be a player that just doesn't play this year, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I just think that it would have been very weird for Chase to get paid this early. Like, he was drafted the year after Jefferson. He was drafted the year after St. Brown. We saw those guys get their contracts this offseason. Why is Chase going to get his contract a year earlier? I think maybe he tried his best, realized he can't get it done, and now is just going to be playing where it's business as usual. Tyler says, I think he balls harder. That'll get him paid even more. I hope. Riggy says, not at all. It matters to others. He knows he's getting a bag. Still has 2 years left. This was my thing. If you watch the week 1 recap in the Flock League, I was crying about Chase, like, making a big deal about not getting paid when you still have 2 years left on your deal. Like, I get it where a wide receiver is playing under the franchise tag. Like T. Higgins. If T. Higgins wanted to cry about not having a deal, you do you. I think it's kind of up for debate. Do you deserve one? Do you not? But at least I understand where you're coming from. This is the last year of your deal. You could potentially get hurt and then not get anything and just cost yourself a ton of money. So I understand not wanting to play on the last year of your deal and kind of throwing a fit over it. But when you got 2 years left, I don't know. It does seem like we're kind of pushing the envelope just a bit. Okay. Prince says, bye-bye, AJ. Dallas Goedert to the moon. Goddard does go up if there's no AJ Brown. Yes. Manning looked phenomenal. Mark says, Javonte or Zeke, Mason? So obviously very tough matchup for Javonte here. Javonte did outsnap Jaleel, and Javonte had the role on third down as well. But it should just be a much worse Denver Broncos offense, and it's that tough matchup going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this week, I definitely would prefer Zeke. Okay. Texans for Life says, should I play Aaron Jones or Zach Moss? I would go ahead and I would take Aaron Jones. I do think that Aaron Jones comes back down to earth dramatically. I mean, if you're looking at what you had last week, it's just a great game environment going up against the Giants, where obviously he was able to dominate. Here's just a much tougher spot overall. Okay. So let's move this. Aleem says, Mason, why did you remove the Odell catch intro from all your videos? Honestly, just trying to be as efficient as possible. If y'all notice with my videos, I don't try to like put some intro and like, I don't want to waste anybody's time. I just try to jump right into it. I do miss the Odell intro though. Can y'all spam the chat? Who was watching the channel when we had the Odell Beckham Jr. intro? Who was here then? Okay. Let's see. iPro Baby says Tank Dell or Jaden Reed. I'd rather have Tank Dell right now for this week, and I'd rather have Tank Dell rest of season as well. Luke was out here. Stretch, Tech, Alejandro, Noor. I recognize you, my guy. I recognize it. Manuel. John was living in Nebraska at that point. But much love. Thank you, all ladies and gentlemen. But let's go ahead and Chandler says start Jacobs or Jordan Mason. I'm going to go Jordan Mason this week with no Jordan Love. Cooley says, why do you have on a suit? So the true story of why I have on a suit is back when I started doing like fantasy football stuff on YouTube, everybody that did it was like in their 40s. And I started in college and I realized, hey, I'm doing this in college. Most people watching me are going to be in their 30s. I'm like 20 years old. Maybe I was 21. I was 20 years old, I think, when I started. So I was like, okay, I kind of want to look a little older and I want to make sure people know that I actually care and I am trying. So I threw on a suit. And then it now is kind of, now I can't go back. It's been too long. It's been too long. If I were to start now, I wouldn't have done it though. But I can't go back on it. Camouflage says, I traded CMC and Flowers for St. Brown, Baker, and Amari. Flowers to Amari, lateral move. CMC to St. Brown. I would rather have St. Brown there. Pew says, I wear a suit to watch all your videos. I am assuming everybody does. Is there somebody here that doesn't? If there's somebody that is watching this right now without a suit, I would feel embarrassed if I were you. And the exit is to the left, stage left. But let's go ahead and let's dive into some more questions on flockfantasy.com. Of course, if you wanted to ask any questions, you can on flockfantasy.com and get yourself a guaranteed answer. We have trade questions, start sit questions, full-blown roster reviews, really whatever you're looking for. I will say again, though, if you were wanting a team review, definitely the cheapest way to get it would be heading over and taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy. If you go to Underdog Fantasy with the link in the description, live chat, or comment section and use code FLOCK, you are going to be getting a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with code FLOCK, you're going to get a CD Lamb special pick'em, more than less than half a total yard. And on top of that, like I said, you'll get that free team review on flockfantasy.com. Just have to make sure you have an email address set up on flockfantasy.com as the same email address that you used on Underdog Fantasy, so I can credit you with the free team voucher. Okay. Now let's move over to this next one. This is Tyreek Hill to Garrett Wilson and Ezekiel Elliott to Brandon Ayuk. At this point, I think it's very easy to go with the Wilson and Ayuk side post Tua injury. Obviously, if Tua is fully healthy and Tyreek was still wide receiver 1 overall, it would be a little bit of a different story. I moved Tyreek Hill down to like wide receiver 7 in my rankings, though, and I have Wilson wide receiver 8. So I don't think it's that large of a move. Now, Dynasty Boogie coming out with our next question. This is, win now situation, a loaded receiver, could use an extra flex in starting Rodgers as our quarterback 3. Also, worried about Puka long-term if Stafford retires. I believe in Brian Thomas Jr.'s upside. Okay, so obviously this is a dynasty league. I would prefer Burrow over Love. However, if we are going to be looking at Puka versus Brian Thomas Jr., I think it's Puka very easily. I'm assuming that you filled out the league settings correctly here, and this is a 12-team start 10-2 quarterback dynasty league. If that is the case, I believe Burrow is the best asset. I think if you personally are worried about the Brian Thomas Jr. injury and the Puka Nacua injury and Stafford's retirement, I'm not going to fault you at all if you just wanted to go ahead and take Joe Burrow there. But let's go ahead and pull up our next question. It's coming out from Dom Sheffo. Says, looking to move Jordan Mason. If you were wanting to trade Jordan Mason, you need more than this, my friend. A marginal upgrade from Pittman to Mike Evans is not nearly enough. Jordan Mason's a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 for, at least a month. So, no, it's Jordan Mason and Pittman here. If you wanted to make a move like this, you're looking for Garrett Wilson in return. You're not looking for Mike Evans. Now, J20 Anderson coming out says, just overall options, had a bad week 1, but still won. I'm very sorry, my friend. This team is not loading right now. I'm going to try again later in the live stream. I know we've had some issues with weird league formats here, so I'm sorry that we're going to skip by this just for now. But Jawut Hoodie has asked 1,000 questions on the site. Appreciate you, my friend. Says, do I make this trade? A.J. Brown hamstring injury scares me. So going from A.J. Brown to CMC, probably a downgrade with CMC on the IR. Going from Kamara to DJ Moore, almost a lateral move. You're getting Ladd McConkey here. I would probably prefer Brown and Kamara. But if I'm not worried about the AJ Brown hamstring. So, if I was worried, if I thought AJ Brown was going to miss a month, then at that point, it probably would be an easy spot to just go ahead and take the CMC side. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Now, Baby Back Gibbs coming out with a team review says, love the content, Mason. Would you do Moss? What would you do with Moss and second round picks? Okay, so this is a Dynasty 10-team start 8 format. So obviously, if we are looking at Jordan Mason, I want to make sure that we are all on the same page here. Jordan Mason in a Dynasty league is a very exciting asset to contend with over the next few weeks. Is going to help you win a couple matchups. But in terms of projecting out Jordan Mason in 2025 and 2026, it's very difficult to assume that this guy is anything at all. So from a rebuilding perspective, if you were looking to build for the long term, in Dynasty, Jordan Mason would be a sell. Now, obviously, like I said, if you're wanting to contend, he's somebody that can't help you a ton, and you definitely don't have to move him. Now, going ahead and looking at this, quarterback, you are currently sitting with Anthony Richardson, Brock Purdy, Will Levis. So we are chilling at quarterback, no need whatsoever. We can definitely contend with this quarterback room right now. I'm going to assume that this is a team that actually should be looking to contend, given the fact that we are the number 1 team according to the league analyzer right now. Now, going over to running back, we currently are sitting with Jahmyr Gibbs. So one of the very few cornerstone pieces at running back in Dynasty, where if you were looking at Gibbs, not only can we contend with him right this second, but at the same time, you are potentially in a spot that this is a running back that we can comfortably project in 2024 and in 2025 to have a respectable role. Kenneth Walker, Ramondre Stevenson, definitely more so these contending pieces. Looking at Jordan Mason, I think Mason makes a difference here for this team to contend this season, especially as we are dealing with the Kenneth Walker injury. So hopefully over the short term, we can go ahead and we can start Jordan Mason. Going over to receiver, we have a bunch of cornerstone assets, a bunch of guys that we're contending with this year that we're building around for the long term. We have Wilson. We have Collins. We have Rice. We have Olave. This is a start 8 league. So it looks like you can only start 2 receivers and 2 flexes. So the depth here is not super, super important. And going over to tight ends, you have the cornerstone asset with Trey McBride. So I think that this is a phenomenal setup for you to win this season. Not only for you to win this year, but for you to also have value going into the future. If you were potentially wanting to make a trade here, and you were wanting to ship Jordan Mason at a second round pick, what we would be looking for in return is we would want an asset that would be able to help us contend and at the same time have an extended shelf life, a shelf life that maybe Jordan Mason wanted. So maybe if we were looking to go through and trade, say, Jordan Mason a couple seconds, and go get a player like Kyron Williams. Or maybe Jordan Mason in a second and go get a player like Josh Jacobs. Obviously, Jacobs would be the lesser end there. But we can go through and we can look at some of the teams that are maybe near the bottom end for this team. Actually, but the issue is whoever's trading for Mason is going to need a running back in the short term, right? And they're going to need to be a contending team for that reason. So if this team here thinks that they're a contending team, and you can take Jordan Mason and a second and go get James Cook, I think that could make a lot of sense given the fact that we are giving this team projectable running back value in the short term. They get an additional asset to potentially go ahead and make a move with. I think we'd maybe have to throw in a little bit more than just a singular second. But I think that's kind of what we'd be looking at here, my friend. Honestly, it's a phenomenal team. Love the way that you've constructed it. I don't necessarily think that there are really any moves that we need to make. I think it's a team that can contend this year. We have the picks as well going to the future. We're going to be good in the future as well, especially with that young wide receiver core. You look at the league analyzer here. The league analyzer does have us as the number one team for a good reason. So I think you're in a great spot if you are trading Mason and a second. We're looking for a running back that's going to help us contend this year, but maybe have a little bit of a longer shelf life. Now let's move over to our next team. This is going to be a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex redraft league. This is Hellcats and Baby Mamas. Love the team name. Checking out the squad, quarterback, honestly, don't love what we are doing here. We are currently sitting with Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, as well as Aaron Rodgers. Looking at all three of these QBs, I personally think Kyler is a quarterback that we can start every single week, regardless of matchup. So I don't necessarily think that you need a second quarterback here. If you were going to roster a second quarterback, it is that guy that's maybe a little bit banged up, that's going to see his value increase in the long term, such as Jordan Love. Just what I don't understand is why we would potentially feel the need to roster Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if Rodgers is going to be doing anything for this team. Going over to running back, we have Etienne, Walker, Brooks, Charbonnet, Bigsby, Irving. So I really like this running back room. Obviously, 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. We are pretty much going through and trying to have as much running back upside as we possibly can. Love the guys like Charbonnet and Bigsby, where if the starters will go down in front of them, they easily can fill in. Like here with no Walker, we're going to just go ahead and start Zach Charbonnet this week. I'm assuming Brooks is on the IR, so that's not taking up a roster spot for us. Going over to wide receiver, we have the cornerstone assets at the top. We have Chase, Brown, Amari, Jaden Reed, and Deontay Johnson. I would have liked to sell Deontay, but it's probably a little bit too late now where you're no longer going to be able to do that. Looking at the wide receiver depth, it probably is actually valuable for you to hold on to somebody like Jaden Reed now that you're dealing with the A.J. Brown injury. One thing that I'd be interested to know, and we definitely need to improve this on the site, is we need to know how many IR slots that you have in every league. But if you only have one IR slot and we're having to roster TJ Hawkinson on the bench or Jonathan Brooks on the bench, I'd love to move off one of those guys to just open up that bench spot for us so we don't have the clogger. And obviously that would be a deal, but let me count the other roster spots in your league. And actually this may be a super flex format, considering that, yeah, this is, I think, a super flex league. I mean, we're looking at a bunch of other teams here rostering 3 QBs. If this is a super flex league, obviously you are absolutely crushing with Kyler, Love, and Rodgers, where you potentially have 2 QB1s and that QB2. The Love injury does hurt. But yeah, this was a super flex league. I think this team actually goes higher in the league analyzer. So super flex league, we're wanting to hold on to Rodgers. But anyway, we got distracted. This team, 3 quarterbacks, 5, that's 8, 5, that's 13. They're rostering 15 guys. We have 3, 6, that's 9, 5, that's 14. 2, that is 16. So yeah, it does look like maybe Brooks or Hawkinson is currently sitting on the bench for us. We only have one IR slot. And if that is the case, I think it would be a compelling move to potentially sell, say, Jonathan Brooks and a package deal with Jaden Reed and go get that upgrade at running back there in a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex if you get A.J. Brown back next week. Now, obviously, I don't necessarily think you look to do that until we get A.J. Brown back in. We are going to need that depth. But overall, if we make that move, then all of a sudden we kind of clear up that bench spot from the player on the IR, and we are chilling. Now, ignore me if this is a league where you can roster 2 players in the IR and we have that spot open. If it's a super flex league where you can roster 2 players in the IR, then you're just absolutely chilling and you're ready to crush, my friend. But yeah, great team. And yeah, I think it's a super flex league. And if it is, it's definitely even a better squad. But let's go ahead and let's move this over. This is coming out from Cody. Says, worried about the Tua injury, so I threw Tyreek on the trade block. I was offered Evans and Dell for Tyreek and Pickens. I got countered with Tyreek, Brian Thomas Jr. How do we feel about this? So Tyreek to Evans, massive downgrade. Brian Thomas Jr. to Tank Dell, slight upgrade. It's easily Tyreek Hill. You're trading the best player. Maybe if you told me, Mason, for a 100% certainty, we have Skylar Thompson for the next 15 weeks in Miami, then at that point, I would say, yeah, maybe we consider it. But no, I mean, at this point, you just need to go ahead and you need to take Tyreek. I think there is an outside chance that you only have, say, 2 out a month. But let's go over to our next team here. It's going to be a full-blown team review. It's going to be Team Grand Mac. This is a half PPR of 4-point passing touchdown. Waivers. Ooh, thank you for including the waiver wire in your comment. This is definitely going to be something that we are going to add on to the league analyzer on flockfantasy.com, so it's easier for me to suggest moves here. But running backs, we have Eckler, Warren. I'm trying to drop Bigsby to pick him up. 100%, I'd agree there. Hubbard, Corum, Dowdle, Jaleel. Tried selling wide receivers for running backs and nobody's biting. To be honest with the running backs that you have on waivers, if you're telling me guys like Austin Eckler and Jalen Warren are on the waiver wire currently, I don't necessarily think you need to trade for running backs. I think we just need to be able to roster as many running backs as we possibly can on the bench. Especially with this being a league where we only start 2 receivers and 1 flex in a 10-team format. The wide receiver depth just simply isn't going to matter here. So quarterback, love to see it. We're only rostering 1 guy. We're chilling with Kyler. Going over to running back, the CMC injury definitely puts us in a very difficult situation. And I do think with how strong we are at wide receiver at the top, I think at this point it does make sense to go ahead and not only just pick up Jalen Warren, but at the same time pick up Austin Eckler here. Because, I mean, if we're looking at starting your running back in the short term, you're going to have to start Ezekiel Elliott this week. That's not really a spot that I'm super excited about. I mean, if I'm starting Ezekiel Elliott, it's okay, but I don't necessarily know what the real upside is there, even if it is a decent offense. So if we could potentially move off of Allen Lazard, drop Lazard, pick up Jalen Warren, drop Bigsby, pick up Austin Eckler, and give ourselves a shot at 2 separate startable running backs with the CMC injury. Because you go over to wide receiver, Kupp startable, Harrison startable, London startable, Godwin startable, Waddle startable, even if we're not that excited about it with the Tua injury. But long term, when we get Tua back in, Waddle crushes. Like, Allen Lazard does nothing for this team. And at the same time, we do get news that if you are looking at the deployment of the Jets receivers, you are probably going to have a little more Mike Williams this week than we saw in week 1. Sounded like Mike Williams was on a snap count week 1. And going into the future, that's not going to be something that he needs to deal with. So I think moving on from Allen Lazard, picking up those running backs, tight ends with Parkinson, I don't fault you for rostering him, given how Kincaid has disappointed through the first 2 weeks. I do think Kincaid's still going to be a completely fine option. But let me go ahead and let me actually pull up where I have Parkinson ranked, because it looks like based off the league analyzer, I did not update my Parkinson ranking. Where do we have him? Okay, yeah, I need to even update this list so I can include him on here. But yeah, so I'm fine with you rostering the backup tight end. In terms of trades, I think if you didn't have the 2 injury and Waddle was still viable, I would 100% want to trade one of the receivers for a running back. Like you said, your league mates aren't really into valuing wide receivers. So, I mean, I think you're fine to not have to sell one of the receivers. But if you're telling me your league mates aren't valuing wide receiver and we already have all these studs at the very top, just rostering the bums at the bottom like Lazard won't do much for us. So instead, let's go ahead. Let's move on from Lazard. Let's move on from Bigsby. Let's pick up Warren. Let's pick up Eckler. If one of those guys ends up going before us, instead, I think we pick up Blake Corum, a running back that has a very high ceiling if the starter were going down in front of him. But yeah, you're going to be just fine. Let's just attack the running back position with quantity when we already have quality at receiver. But I think this is a great team. I don't necessarily think you are having to do much there, my friend. But let's go ahead and let's get this start sit question for Solar. Asking if we should start Debo or Smith with no St. Brown. So this is a very interesting question. This is a phenomenal squad here, my friend. Looking at it, yeah, the main guys we would consider would be Debo Samuel and Devonta Smith. Obviously, Smith gets a bump up with no A.J. Brown. But I'd make an argument that Debo also gets a bump up with no McCaffrey, given the usage that we should expect him to have close to the line of scrimmage. I mean, you saw the carries last week. So I think both players are very interesting. To be honest with you, I think I may be a little bit boring here. I think I may just go ahead and take Debo Samuel because, I mean, you still have no Sticky Ricky. Brandon Ayuk still maybe a little bit limited at the beginning of the year. You have no CMC. I think Debo right now is set to just absolutely crush. Like if you look at my rest of season rankings on the site, I actually, with the AJ Brown hamstring, if that's going to cause some uncertainty, we probably move Kupp over Brown. But yeah, I have Debo Samuel up at wide receiver 9 with the CMC injury. I think Debo crushes. And I think we probably jump Smith over Olave and Evans with, this isn't my weekly rankings. These are our rest of season rankings. Let's go ahead and let's get those up to date. But yeah, I still think we're going to go Debo. I think Debo's just in a spot to crush as well. Let's go ahead. Let's submit that. Now, thoughts on this trade? Would like an upgrade at wide receiver over Pittman, and then any other recommendations. So I do not believe CMC will be out for the entire season. I want to put that little asterisk out there because I want to say that if McCaffrey is out for the entire year, Jordan Mason will be more valuable than Mike Evans in fantasy. Jordan Mason is a more valuable piece than Evans in any game that you have no McCaffrey. But because I am expecting McCaffrey to eventually make his way back here, I personally would go ahead and take Mike Evans. I think you have a player that's going to make a difference in the short term and a player that's going to make a difference in the long term. If you wanted to upgrade from Pittman, I think my main offer, though, would be I would be trying to trade Pittman and Mason to get to an elite receiver there at the end of round 1, to get to somebody like Garrett Wilson. Okay. But really appreciate you, my guy. Now, our next question is a trade question coming out from Jagarza. Says, just wondering if this trade's worth it. I'm very light at the running back position, but not sure if it's worth trading the consistency and upside of AJ and McBride. Okay. So going from McBride to likely, that is a downgrade. Going from AJ Brown to Breece Hall, that's an upgrade. Going from Najee and Pittman to Rice, kind of up to you there. This is a tough deal. Given the hamstring injury that you have with AJ Brown, and Breece Hall is just that locked and loaded. This is really tough. If you didn't include Najee or Pittman in this deal, and it was just say Najee, McBride, AJ Brown for likely Breece, Rice, I would kind of easily go with the Breece side. But because you throw in Najee, because you throw in Pittman, two guys that you're able to actually start from week to week perspective, it does really make it tough. Can y'all please spam the chat? Would you rather have the Breece Hall side of this, or would you rather have the AJ Brown side of this? Would you have the Breece or AJ side? Typically, I'm never looking to make moves that are of this size. I'm not wanting to trade 4 of my best players for 3 of somebody else's best players. We have the majority of people saying Breece. Definitely have some AJ Browns mixed in. But it does look like the majority of people are saying Breece Hall here, my friend. Which, like I said, it would be Breece for me easily if it wasn't for the fact that, like, you throw in, like, you're downgrading from McBride to likely, and you throw in the extra starter here as well. But yeah, I think we go Breece and just take the best player. Okay. Now, this team review is for Sun God Sun Kiss. Says, what are the team thoughts? Want to know, but I think I just got lucky. I'm thinking of making a package for Kyler or Anthony Richardson to make a stack, or should we pick up Goff and play the matchups for this season? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's pull this up. First thing that I want to reference will be the league settings here. And here, just 1 second. 1 second, I'll be back, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But we are back like we never left. And checking this team out, this is a league where you only have 2 wide receivers and 1 flex spot. So I definitely think that you have an incentive to go and get the elite level quarterback if you can. But honestly, Jaden Daniels already has a ton of upside here. I will say, you mentioned Jared Goff being available off the waiver wire. So specifically at quarterback, I would like to make a pivot. And if we could potentially just go ahead and actually just drop Baker Mayfield. I know Baker has a great week 1, but I do think that you have more upside in Detroit. If you are looking at sports books, they are projecting pretty much week in and week out for the Lions to be the highest scoring offense in the NFL. Obviously, a lot of that comes with the rushers with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. But still, nonetheless, I think that you're already in on this Lions offense. So I would move on from Baker, pick up Goff, and I wouldn't mind if you wanted to play the matchups between Daniels, Goff. Based off the Daniels rushing upside, you're probably playing Daniels in the majority of those weeks. Going over to running back, we have a couple of veterans that are absolutely crushing it right now. We have Barkley, we have James Conner. Going down to the flex, we have David Montgomery. On the bench, we have Blake Corum, Tony Pollard. So looking at how strong we are at running back at the very top, somebody like Tony Pollard is definitely a running back that I think we can afford to give up to a team that maybe is dealing with some injuries, dealing with the Walker injury, maybe dealing with the CMC injury. And if you could potentially send them, say, Tony Pollard and a wide receiver here, send them Tony Pollard and Michael Pittman Jr. to go get a wide receiver that we are very excited about in the long term. Obviously, if you can somehow swindle yourself into, I know it's very unlikely, but if you could somehow swindle yourself into a player like Garrett Wilson, then obviously that is an absolute no-brainer. Like I said, I know it's very unlikely, but that would be kind of the range of player that I would love to go after. Maybe A.J. Brown could be viable given the A.J. Brown hamstring injury. Maybe somebody's a little bit worried there, but I think that's a big play that we can make. It's the running back with the cap ceiling based off the offense that he's in, with the wide receiver with the cap ceiling based off the offense that he's in. Go get that stud receiver. And then honestly, down here on the bench, you still have plenty of depth to go around. I mean, you still have a Jaden Reed that you can look at. David Montgomery is in that flex. One thing that you could consider as well is if you were wanting to trade for that stud quarterback, you could package together Tony Pollard and Jaden Daniels. And then if you were to do that, you could just drop Baker and then pick up another running back off of waivers and wouldn't necessarily have to concern yourselves with the quarterback on your bench clogging one of these roster spots. I do think that Yoshi down on the bench, maybe in a league like this where you can only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, maybe is a little more of a roster clogger where I'd rather roster another running back that looks like Blake Corum. That's an injury away from making a major difference. Tight end, we have McBride. Obviously, we're crushing with McBride. We are starting him every single week regardless of matchup. But overall, I think you're in a great spot with this team. I would drop Baker, pick up Goff, explore the possibility of using Pollard in an upgrade for this starting lineup, with it being a shallower format and with us having all the running back depth. But thank you again, my friend. I really do appreciate you and really hope I was able to help you out somewhat here. But let's go over to our next question. This is a trade question coming out from Kevin. Then we're going to answer some free questions in the live chat. Saying, thinking about proposing this trade, need a wide receiver because Puka is down. Robinson would be my running back too. Should I propose the trade and will it even be accepted? So I will say, never be afraid to offer a trade because you think it's not going to get accepted. Almost the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't get accepted. If it doesn't get accepted, then we go back to the drawing board. Now, if you're worried like, oh, am I losing this deal? Then maybe that's a trade that you hold off on going ahead and offering. But don't hold off offering somebody something just because you're afraid that the other owner is going to reject it. Really, rejection's not the worst thing in the world, all right? You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Now, anyway, going ahead and looking at the squad, Puka versus Deebo Samuel. Give me Deebo Samuel by quite a wide margin. Aaron Jones to Brian Robinson. Give me Aaron Jones. I do think that Jones is a potential sell high candidate, though, with a tougher matchups and game environments going into the future. So as we look at this, honestly, I do think I just go with the best player in the deal in Deebo Samuel. It would have been Puka before the injury, but with the timeline of Puka being uncertain, I'd just rather have Deebo here. But let's answer this, and let's go ahead and let's pull up some of the free questions that we have in the live chat real quick. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. I'm just there, says Mason. I got sent Godwin and Ford, and it got accepted for St. Brown this week. Absolutely love to hear it. This is why in the buy low wide receiver video, I included St. Brown. I included Garrett Wilson with the obvious caveat. If your league mates know what you're doing, there's no way you get a deal done. But every once in a while, you'll be in a league where your league mates don't know what they're doing, and somehow you'll pull off something like this. Okay. Let's see. Nug says Waddle for Marvin straight up. Before the Tua injury, after week 1, I had Waddle and Marvin somewhat close. Post Tua injury, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. by a mile. I go ahead and looking at my rankings on the site right now. These are my rest of season rankings that I'm sure y'all see me updating these literally every single day. And that's something that I absolutely love about flockfantasy.com. Just to let you like peel back the curtain from a creator perspective is like back whenever I used to have to do stuff through Patreon, I would have to like update a Google Doc, then post a Google Doc on Patreon. It looked crappy for everybody. It was kind of a pain in the butt. But now on flockfantasy.com, it's just so easy for me to update my rankings, whether they're my weekly rankings, my dynasty rankings, my rest of season rankings, that I can pretty much do it every single day as we get additional news. But yeah, if you're looking at where I have these guys ranked right now, I have Harrison at 11 rest of season, and I do have Waddle down at 21 post Tua injury. Zachary, happy to see you, my guy. Hope that you're doing well, and hopefully you like the merch. Warren or Spears this week, I probably do go ahead and take Jalen Warren in a good matchup. Obviously, Najee did dominate the usage week 1, but the hope is that maybe Jalen Warren expands his role another week removed from the hamstring. And it's a good matchup against Denver, where Spears has that tough matchup. Now, Chandler says Puka and Olave for Jamar Chase. If it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, I'd rather have Chase. If it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, give me Chase. Aleem says, I've been a long-time member of the flock since you were giving away the hats on YouTube comments. Absolutely love to hear it, my friend. Much love. And also, I will say for anybody that is an annual member of flockfantasy.com, I'll actually show you what you're going to get. One second. Annual members of flockfantasy.com. I'm about to post a Google form on the site, probably a week or two. I'm just setting things up logistically. I think this is like a 5XL. They don't all look like this. This is legitimately a 5XL. So imagine this much smaller. We got the Flock Fantasy logo on it. And then on the back, birds of a feather win leagues together. So what I'm going to do, and we also have the Flock Fantasy hats and stuff. I'm going to post on flockfantasy.com. You'll see it on the post where you see like start set tools and all that stuff. It will just say like, hey, fill out what you want for merch. It's going to ask you your flockfantasy.com email address. It's going to ask for your address so I can send you the thing. It's going to ask for your t-shirt size. It's going to ask you for your shirt or hat preference. And then I'm going to hire somebody to essentially fulfill everything in a week. It'll be completely free for you if you're an annual member on the site. And we'll get you a hat. We'll get you a shirt. We'll make sure you get something. Okay. But Justin says that should be a long sleeve for the fall and winter. My God. When you got a bod like this, are you kidding me? When you got a bod like this, I'd say it should be a crop top. Okay, let's move this over. Z-Plane says, do I hope A.J. Brown plays or start Jameson instead? It depends who your pivot option. I mean, obviously, it's tough to answer A.J. Brown questions right now. Hopefully, we get more information regarding the A.J. Brown stuff tomorrow. Okay. But let's move this over. Tresner says, don't you dare say Pollard is going unnoticed. Maybe somebody else in the chat said that. I didn't say that. Andrew says Tank Dell or Devontae Adams. A very tough spot. I think Adams is in a horrible matchup this week going up against the Ravens. Right now, sportsbooks have the Raiders with the lowest implied team total of any team in the NFL this week. So not super excited about Devontae Adams. But I do think we still probably go Adams over Dell. It's definitely very close. But I mean, Dell is wide receiver 3 on his team. Devontae Adams obviously is him. Okay. And let's pivot back over to flockfantasy.com. I do want to remind y'all, of course, you can guarantee to get any question answered, guarantee to get any team review, whether it's a start sit question, trade question, full-blown team review, all on flockfantasy.com. And also, I will say the cheapest way to get a team review is by just taking advantage of the offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy. Or if you go over to Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you can find the link in the description, comment section, live chat. You will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. You'll get a CD Lamb special pick'em more than less than half a total yard for tomorrow. And you'll get a free team review on flockfantasy.com. So make sure you take advantage of that, ladies and gentlemen. But we are going to check out this team for Show Me Your TDs, classic team name. Says need help rest of season with Puka and Brooks on the IR and having London. Well, I will say somehow we managed to have the number one team with the league analyzer. Also starts it this week. Available waiver wire options are Addison, Warren, Wandale, DeMarcus, Dowdle, Chandler, Edwards, Sanders, Gibson, Lloyd, Wright, Pirine, Algier. Okay, so by far and away the best waiver wire options are Jordan Addison, Jalen Warren. I'd be very surprised if we're not dropping guys for Addison and Warren. Actually, this is a good team. Never mind. And so what I also like about the site too is clearly we can see that you already picked up Warren, so it does update after y'all make moves and stuff. So never like panic, think like, oh, I submitted my team to him and then I made a trade. Now he's not going to see it. I will see your updated team. Don't worry about that. We pull it real time. But anyway, checking this out, this said 10 team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. So the wide receiver depth doesn't really matter. Really, the only thing that is going to be that high priority for us is, if we can get an elite RB, top end quarterback, top end tight ends, that is what we want. A wide receiver, at the very most, you can only start 3 of them from week to week perspective. Now, going over to quarterback, we are currently chilling with Jalen Hurts. With Hurts, you can start him every single week, regardless of matchup. So absolutely no hesitation whatsoever. You are chilling. You don't need a backup. Maybe it's a little bit of a tougher situation this week because obviously this week with Jalen Hurts, he may have no A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown does really open up this offense a ton. One thing I need to ask y'all is, I'm not going to waste your time with the team review doing it. I have a Devonta Smith question I need to ask the chat, but we'll do that later. But anyway, going over to running back, we have Bijan. We have Zach Moss, Jonathan Brooks, DeAndre Swift, Jalen Warren. So who we're starting this week? I think we start Bijan Robinson and Zach Moss. Also, obviously, we have the anchor running back at the top with Bijan Robinson. We have the depth behind him with some upside with these guys like Moss, Brooks, Swift, and Warren. Going over to wide receiver, we have London, Puka, Dell, Flowers, Keon Coleman, and Christian Kirk. So knowing that you have somebody like Jordan Addison available to you on the waiver wire, for me, this is a situation in which these guys like Christian Kirk, Keon Coleman hold almost no value in this league. Because if you're telling me that we can pick up Jordan Addison for free, that essentially means if we can trade Christian Kirk and Zach Moss and get any running back upgrade, Keon Coleman and Jonathan Brooks and get any running back upgrade, Zay Flowers and DeAndre Swift and get any running back upgrade, and then you're able to just pick up Jordan Addison off the waiver wire for free, that's like saying, oh, I traded Zay Flowers and Zach Moss and I went out there and I got, say, Rashad White. I traded Moss and Flowers for Rashad White. Well, in reality, if you pick up Addison off waivers, it's like you traded for Rashad White and Jordan Addison, where at that point you were just absolutely crushing. So in this format, it's a no-brainer. Where you want to make that 2-for-1 deal, selling the wide receiver piece with the running back and getting that upgrade. I think you can do the same thing at tight end, picking up Likely off waivers. Where if you are sitting with Isaiah Likely, the thing is there are teams that are desperate at tight end right now. That team's fine. They have Bowers. But going on beyond this, that team's fine. They have Kittle. This team has Jake Ferguson, Colby Parkinson. If you could potentially send them Isaiah Likely and one of our running backs and get to Derrick Henry, I think that'd be an absolute no-brainer. Send them Isaiah Likely and Jalen Warren and see if we can get to James Conner. And then have that solidified RB2 for us rest of season. I think that's the move we make. I think we pick up Addison off the waivers. Obviously, it's a strong team. It's a team that doesn't really need to make too many moves. We are sitting here with the number one squad with the league analyzer. So very comfortable spot. That is just what I'd be looking at if we were trying to do something here, my friend. But let's go ahead and let's move on to this next team. Much love. This is for Brees's Pieces. This is J20 Anderson coming out. Says just overall opinions, had a bad week 1, but still won, so I'm comfortable with where I should be. Are we going to go Charbonnet over Ford? Yes, I'll play Zach Charbonnet over Jerome Ford. Or can Charge replace for anyone, any way to make the team better? So let's go ahead. Let's check this out. First thing I don't want to address, it's a 12 team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. So depth doesn't matter as much, but waiver wire options aren't going to be as solid as they would be in a 10-team league. Going over to quarterback, Kyler's about the range of quarterback where you could only start 1 if you wanted. You could only roster 1 if you wanted. You could roster 2 if you wanted. If you were going to roster that second guy, want it to be someone with a lot of upside. So sitting here with Justin Fields, I think that does make a lot of sense for you, to be honest. So quarterback room, I really do like with the combo of Kyler and Fields. Going over to running back, we have the anchor with Breece Hall. I mean, I think this may be the reason we are the number 1 team with the analyzer. Going beyond this, we have the long-term upside with Brooks and Nick Chubb, but they're not going to give us anything in the short term. We have the short-term fill-ins with Jerome Ford, Javonte, Charbonnet, Bigsby. So, I mean, this is why on a team like this, you want to be rostering so many running backs. That way, randomly, Zach Charbonnet becomes a startable piece where we're able to go ahead and we're able to put in our lineup when we have no Brooks, when we have Nick Chubb, until we get them for the long term. So I would start Charbonnet this week over Jerome Ford under the assumption, of course, that you have no Kenneth Walker. Going over to wide receiver, we have Harrison, London, 2 guys that very much disappointed week 1. But we have the long-term upside with Waddle, Keon Coleman, and JSN as well. So overall, I think wide receiver, you are just completely fine here. And I like that we have the anchor RB. We're building out with depth at the running back position. We have the elite tight end with Dalton Kincaid. So looking at our starting lineup this week, we go Kyler, Breece, Charbonnet, Harrison. I'm assuming we already started Waddle, and London. Going into the future, we are Kyler, Hall, Ford under the assumption Walker comes back in. Wide receiver, Harrison, London, probably Waddle in the flex, but we're not that excited about it. If we don't have Walker back in, then we can go Jerome Ford at running back 2 and Zach Charbonnet there at the flex, and then tight end Dalton Kincaid. So honestly, it's a team that there are very little trades that we can make until we end up having Brooks or Chubb closer to returning. Obviously, when we're going to get closer to the Chubb or Brooks addition onto this team, then at that point, we'll have more depth and we'll have the incentive where we need to make the space on our roster to add these pieces in. So then at that point, I think that's definitely the time we need to be making trades. Just right now, you are not necessarily incentivized to do that. Okay. But I think that's all I have for the team. I mean, it's a great team. Number 1 team with the analyzer. The main thing is we just need to let it marinate. We need to wait until we get Brooks and Chubb back in. And then at that point, I think you can start selling some depth and getting those top end pieces. But also, we kind of want to wait for Tua to come back in for Waddle as well. But really do appreciate you, my friend. Really hope that you have a great day. And I was hopefully able to help you out in somewhat there. Well, let's go over to our next team. This coming out from Jack. It says, hey, Mason, it's a keeper league. I have CMC, Gibbs, and Breece. Obviously, with CMC going down and Waddle being my wide receiver 2, I'm in a bit of a panic mode. My guy, do not panic this much. We want Jahmyr Gibbs, even if this was not a keeper league, even if this was just a redraft format. It's Gibbs for me. I don't say a wide margin, but by a pretty wide margin. Like, we're 1 week into the season. Jahmyr Gibbs was a round 1 pick in your draft who doesn't look like he's slowing down in any way. And you're trading for a middle round pick and a waiver wire guy, you know, especially in a keeper league. Just please go ahead and keep Jahmyr Gibbs. Justin says, Mason so damn handsome. The fantasy advice is pretty nifty. This is what I need from y'all in the Flock League. All right. I will give y'all a shout out. I definitely appreciate y'all because I monitor the Flock League YouTube channel comments, as every creator does that's in the Flock League. And I definitely notice y'all trickling in. And following the instructions of leaving comments saying Mason has the best team, Mason's so handsome, Mason's so smart, Mason's so funny. That's what we need, all right? We need to get in the heads of these other owners. Now, if y'all were to do it right when the video drops and right when the video premieres, then it'll be even funnier. So when the video premieres on Tuesday, for the love of God, lock in and immediately go to the comment section and say Mason's the funniest, Mason's the best looking, Mason has the best team. If I win this week, say, of course Mason was going to win. He's going to go undefeated. If I lose this week, go, oh my gosh, Nathan must have cheated. Nathan must have gotten lucky. That's what I need from y'all, please. I need that comment section to be Team Mason with me. All right, I'm playing the villain. We're trying to get in the heads of these other owners. But innovation coming out with the start set question. Much love, my friend, says, which two should I start in the flex out of Worthy, Ford, and Charbonnet? Thank you, Mason. No, thank you, my friend. Looking at this, it is a tough spot. Post-Hollywood injury news. Post-Kenneth Walker injury news. Obviously, you want to start Xavier Worthy with him having a monstrous week last week. But when in doubt, you go with the running back that is safe to project to have a 3-down workload. We're going to go ahead. We will take Jerome Ford, and we will take Zach Charbonnet. Worthy super exciting in the long term, but I think you do have to go ahead and you have to take the running backs with that 3-down workload. Now let's move over to our next question. This is a trade question from 21B Huntoon. It says, should I look to improve at the flex spot here? And is Devonta worth trading for? 100%. I mean, especially with AJ Brown injury, this is an absolute no-brainer. Pickens stuck in a bad offense. Zach Moss in a split backfield definitely looks like he will be over Chase Brown for the time being, but I do think Brown will have a role. I do like, if you're saying Smith's going to be in your flex spot anyway, just going ahead and getting that upgrade there on the 2-for-1 deal. But HBK Cade again says, as it stands, I will have to sit a mostly must-start player. I have Sharp and Ayuk on the bench. Okay, this is a tough spot. Yeah, you have to play Rice over Ayuk and Charbonnet. You have to play Connor and Kyron over Sharp. The question comes down to, can we play Brandon Ayuk over Drake London? If I'm looking at my flex rankings this week, I put Ayuk at 27. I put London at 33. That's what I thought. I do have Ayuk over London in my rankings. Can y'all spam the chat? Who would you rather start this week? Would y'all rather start Drake London or Brandon Ayuk this week? Drake London or Brandon Ayuk? We got Ayuk, London, Ayuk, London, London, Ayuk. Yeah, it looks like most people are saying Brandon Ayuk with us. So I think I stand by my rankings, stand with the chat. I think we do go ahead and we take Brandon Ayuk over Drake London there, my friend. But let's move over to our next start set question. This one coming out from Davola. Need to start 2 receivers and a flex. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Lamb, Nico, and Worthy. So I think 100% we need to start Lamb. 100% we need to start Nico. Between Xavier Worthy, Tank Dell, and Marvin Harrison Jr., I completely understand you wanting to go Xavier Worthy. Had multiple touchdowns week 1. Have no Hollywood Brown. I mean, at this point, forever. But yeah, personally, I think I go ahead. I think I take Marvin Harrison Jr. over Xavier Worthy. Harrison was slow and couldn't separate week 1, but you have like a 25-point implied team total in Arizona. I still expect Harrison to have a massive target share here for this Cardinals offense. So I think I do go ahead and I take Harrison, my friend. Okay. But Sal coming out with the next question says, we need to pick 3 flexes. So we're picking between Palmer, Watson, Sutton, Eckler, Lazard, and Samir. This is going to be a tough spot. I almost just wanted to auto-click Christian Watson here, but I forgot. Like, the thing is, you go over and look at the expectation for the Packers passing volume here. Right now, Underdog has Malik Willis, higher, lower, 165.5 passing yards. Jaden Reed, higher, lower, 32.5 receiving yards. Christian Watson, higher, lower, 26.5 receiving yards. Like, you just simply cannot start any Packers with Malik Willis under center. I think Sutton gives you the guaranteed target volume, even if it's a bad offense in a tough matchup. I think I kind of prefer Eckler here. Let's compare Eckler to some of these other options. I'm assuming this is a full PPR format. Yeah. Eckler, you have higher, lower, 42.5 yards. Pretty much priced in to have at least 3 receptions. Lazard's at 37.5 yards. Zamir's the first and second end back in a garbage offense. What's Palmer at? .35 fantasy points. Anybody but Christian Watson here. We probably go running back. With Allen Lazard, my thing is, obviously Palmer did nothing week 1. I know it's an easy matchup, but I think they can run the ball. With Lazard, Mike Williams was on a snap count. And if you're looking at what the expectation should be in week 2, it does seem like Mike Williams will expand his role a bit. And I'm not willing to buy into Allen Lazard being some top-end option in fantasy just yet. Could be, but I'm not buying it just yet. Now, Jag fan coming out says, Brian Thomas or Ladd McConkey in the final flex spot this week. So, yeah, looking at this is a Dynasty league for everybody wondering why there's so many players here. Komet at tight end. Do we really have to go Komet? Yeah, we do. If Love was playing, I would go Kraft over Komet. But with Willis, I agree with you. So in the final flex spot, I'm assuming you just didn't. So next time if you want to ask a question, obviously I'm fine to just answer it this way, but I just want to make it as easy and clear for everybody as possible. You can add a flex. Like if you have a double flex league, just add that second flex spot, leave it empty, and then I'll click on it to open it up, and all the players will be underneath. I can click on that player, and it will send to you not only the clip of me talking through flockfantasy.com, but it will also send the starting lineup filled out for you as well. I mean, we invested a lot in this software. That way, like even if you miss the question in the live stream, you can still get that answer sent to you directly. Between Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas Jr., obviously you have a great matchup for Ladd going up against Carolina. As we said with Joshua Palmer, however, I'm a little bit concerned that this Chargers team just runs the ball in the second half. If you look at my flex rankings this week, I have them back to back. I have Brian Thomas Jr. ranked 1 spot ahead of Ladd McConkey. Underdog has Ladd McConkey higher, lower, 9.05 fantasy points. They have Brian Thomas Jr. higher, lower, 7.25. So if that's the gap there, then honestly, maybe kind of ignore. I have them ranked back to back, so maybe you just go ahead and maybe take Ladd. Now, we are going to get into this next team for the Freemasons. Thank you, my friend. Really do appreciate you coming out. But just real quick before we look at this, I do want to remind everybody, if you wanted to submit a team to us, you can on flockfantasy.com. On flockfantasy.com, you can purchase a trade question, a start-sit question. You can purchase a full-blown roster review. I do want to remind you, though, the cheapest way to get a roster review will actually be to take advantage of the offer that we have on Underdog Fantasy. If you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy with the link in the live chat, the link in the description, the link in the comment section, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, you will get a free live review on one of these live streams from yours truly through flockfantasy.com. And you'll get that CD Lamb special pick more than less than half a total yard. Just make sure you have an account set up on flockfantasy.com with the same email address that you used on Underdog Fantasy. But let's go ahead and we will get back to the Freemasons team review. But first, let's do these start sets. And this is for Big Route. We are deciding between Kyler or Baker this week. So my guy, if you're going through and filling this out, you just put Kyler Baker here. That way I'll answer you on the live stream and I'll also get sent to you as well, just in case you miss it. But I would go ahead and I would take Kyler Murray relatively easily. Kyler Murray has more rushing upside. And if you look at sportsbooks, they're actually projecting the Cardinals to score more points than the Bucs this week. Now, this team review is going to be for PP Head. Interesting team name, my friend. It says, just traded Jordan Mason and Deontay Johnson for Olave and Javonte to the CMC owner. Was this a good deal? I'm feeling good about the team after. Also, Ray, just in case Brown misses Monday. Need a desperate start. Oh, well, that's pretty funny, my friend. That's pretty funny. But let's go ahead. And honestly, the Olave deal, it is going to come down to how much time CMC misses. If McCaffrey is going to miss, I would say 6 or more weeks, you probably want the Jordan Mason side of that. Whereas if you think CMC is going to be back after 4 weeks, then at that point, it probably does make a little more sense for you to just go ahead and, I don't know, for you to take the long-term upside that you have with those second pieces. But looking at quarterback for this squad, we are currently sitting with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, quarterback that we can start every single week, regardless of matchup. Obviously, don't need that backup here. Going over to running back, Jordan Mason will look good in this running back room, my friend. We have Mixon, Pollard, Javonte, Chase Brown, Ty Chandler. Now, based off yours truly making possibly the dumbest trade of 2024 and trading for Hollywood 3 days before he goes on the IR, Javonte was included in the deal. And I'm telling you, every night before I go to bed, I send up a prayer and going, please, God, have Javonte score 2 touchdowns against Pittsburgh. Somehow make him the bell cow back here, even though he wasn't week 1, even though it's probably not going to happen. Please, Javonte, crush for us. There's nothing I would like more. You can't, if y'all like the videos on the Flock League now, just imagine if Javonte crushes, which isn't going to happen. Let's be transparent with each other. But if it does, I will be losing my mind. And we will get some of the best Flock League clips that could ever be made. But yeah, the running back depth here with Javonte, Chase Brown, Ty Chandler. These are guys that we probably can't rely on, right? You can't rely on Javonte. You can't rely on Chase Brown. You can't rely on Chandler. The guy that we are relying on here is Pollard. And based off the usage where Spears had absolutely everything on third down, Spears had everything in the 2-minute drill, I am worried that maybe Pollard isn't as reliable in weeks going forward where you have this team trailing in games. Obviously, they're winning the vast majority of their games. I'm sorry, not the vast majority of their games, the vast majority of the time in that game against the Chicago Bears. But I don't expect that to be the case going into the future with the Titans here. So I am worried about Pollard. Now, it's a league where we can start 2 receivers in 2 flexes. So we can start up the 4 wide receivers from week to week perspective, full PPR format. We have A.J. Brown, Olave, Puka, DK Metcalf, Palmer, Ray, Tyler Johnson. So looking at this, as you already mentioned with Ray McLeod, we're only rostering him in case A.J. Brown does end up missing on Monday nights. And if that does happen, then yeah, I'm completely fine rostering Ray McLeod just for that last minute pivot. But Tyler Johnson, in my mind, if he doesn't do anything this week, I would way rather just roster a backup tight end instead of Evan Ingram here. And if you can move on from Tyler Johnson, pick up a backup tight end to put behind Ingram. I'm not viewing Ingram as a tight end that you can start every single week kind of regardless. I think week 1 was very concerning. So honestly, I think kind of both these wide receivers are guys that we're going to be dropping after this week. Preferably one for a running back, preferably one for a tight ends. It is tough because it's a league where you can start 4 receivers from week to week perspective. And we have the Puka Nacua injury. So I actually think the Olave deal makes sense in this format for this team here. And honestly, because of the Puka injury and because it's a deeper format in general, I think making a 2-for-1 deal to upgrade over Pollard probably doesn't make a lot of sense in your specific situation. And we just have to hope that I'm wrong about Tony Pollard. We have to hope that Tennessee Titans are maybe a better offense than we expect. Or maybe that Pollard is going to begin to have some of that usage in games even when they are trailing, which is a possibility, right? I'm wrong all the time. I'm an idiot. But I'm definitely a little bit concerned about what we have here regarding our running back 2 situation. And because of the format, I don't think we have the wide receiver depth where we can go through and we can afford to upgrade over Pollard. Maybe when we get Puka Nacua back, we can reevaluate. But I think the main thing is just optimizing the bench here. And after this week, if you don't like the role you had from Tyler Johnson, and obviously we're only rostering Ray Ravencloud for the pivot with A.J. Brown, we move on from Ray and Tyler Johnson for a backup running back and a backup tight end. But thank you again, my friend. I really hope I was able to help you out here, my friend. The dog is absolutely spazzing. Let me throw the dog in another room. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But this is Team Dogwater. It doesn't look like it's loaded. Oh, Team Dogwater right here. Numero 3. For whatever reason, what we need to do also on flockfantasy.com if possible is we need to highlight the team name that it is. As for whatever reason, it's hard to skim through and actually find what team. But saying, what can I do to upgrade at tight end, or do I sit on Likely and hope that he pans out? Well, one thing is, this is a league where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. So tight end's going to make up a decent percentage of our lineup from week to week perspective. So if possible, I would like to upgrade over tight end. I think that's definitely a reasonable view. But at the same time, Likely does have upside. So it's not necessarily something that you have to do. Now going over to quarterback, because Burrow doesn't have the rushing upside, I definitely think that Burrow is a quarterback that we want to roster 2 guys with. Obviously, the Jordan Love injury makes Love a very easy guy to roster as a QB2 here. Somebody that does have long-term upside, but obviously is not going to be super valuable right now based off that injury. So yeah, quarterback room, really like it. I mean, we're just going to have to deal with Burrow for the short term, and then long term, we're going to play the matchups between these 2 guys. Going over to what we have at running back, I mean, we are currently sitting with Kyren Williams, James Cook in the starting lineup. Both running backs have crushed at the beginning of the season. It looks like Kyren is a safe play to have a 90% opportunity share in his backfield yet again. And then James Cook, obviously coming off 3 touchdown performance. Not much changes with James Cook after that game. I mean, he's still the starting running back and what is one of the best offenses in the NFL. Josh Allen will still take rushing touchdowns. So, and nothing really changes with Cook, but it is nice to see. And obviously, I'm assuming we put him in our starting lineup. So it's nice to have those points and pretty much lock us up to win. We have Warren, we have Chubb for long-term upside here as well. We have Corum, Bigsby, just as high upside options if the starters were to go down in front of them in their respective offenses. And then going over to wide receiver, you're currently sitting with Jefferson, so a top 5 option. Debo, a top 10 option. We have the long-term upside of Higgins, Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Legette. Allen Lazard, definitely a tight end that I'm fine rostering at this point. I will say if week 2 we see that Mike Williams just has a way bigger role here and maybe Lazard does take that step backwards, which is 100% a possibility, then at that point I think you could cut Lazard and you could pick up another tight end off of waivers. But honestly, because it's a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, I definitely think you can afford to go out and make that trade to upgrade out tight ends. If you could potentially package together Brian Thomas Jr. and Isaiah Likely for a true elite level tight end option, if you can get Trey McBride, if you can get Sam Laporta, if you can get Travis Kelce, I think a move like that would just be an absolute no-brainer. If you can't do it with Brian Thomas Jr., you could instead offer that same deal with T. Higgins. I wouldn't do it with Debo. I wouldn't do it with Jefferson, obviously. I think those guys would have way too much value. And I don't think you want to include a running back in that kind of trade either. I think your running back group is balanced almost perfectly, really just because it's a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. I think the only reasonable spot to do that with would be one of your wide receiver depth pieces with Likely to get the elite tight ends. But yeah, quarterback not wanting to change a thing, running back not wanting to change a thing. And I will say with Leggett as well, obviously leads the Panthers in targets week 1. And Leggett's one of my most drafted guys in underdog drafts. I think that he could randomly pop off. But in your regular redraft league, especially this kind of format, I don't know if he has the upside to make a difference. So if we don't like what we see in Carolina or the target distribution there, I think Leggett's also somebody that you could move on from this next week if there are very exciting plays off waivers. But definitely not something you need to do. But yeah, overall, I think it's a great team. I don't mind the idea because of the format's upgrade over tight ends. The guys would be looking to package would be Higgins or Brian Thomas with likely, and would be looking at getting Laporta, would be looking at getting Kelsey or McBride in return. Now let's go ahead and let's answer a start sit question. This is from BG. Asking which 3 of these guys we would start. So my friend, I want to be able to fill this out and send it through you to the site. That way, even if you don't want to watch the live stream and you don't want to get an answer out loud, you're still going to get that sheet on top of it. So please, next time, like if you're needing 3 running backs, just on the site, add 3 running back slots. And then under the 3 running back slots, add the 5 running backs that you're considering, if you can. But anyway, if we're looking at these 3 guys, I would say Kyren Williams must start player every single week, 90% of his backfield last week. If we're looking at J.K. Dobbins, I know Dobbins does have the upside, has a great matchup against Carolina. I can't view him as a start over Jordan Mason. I can't view him as a start over James Conner, as these guys that are just going to take every single touch in their respective backfields. If it is a full PPR format, I think I bench. No, I'm not going to do it. I think you go with Kyren, Connor, and Jordan Mason, and you're benching Rachaad White and J.K. Dobbins. Kyren, Connor, Mason will be our starters. White and Dobbins will be the bench. White's the hard guy to bench there. To be honest with you, Dobbins is an easy bench out of that group. Now, let's see if this will load now. Perfect. The free Masons coming out. Excited to check this out for you. Says, hey, Mason, longtime follower here. Really appreciate what you do. Can't wait to hear what you think of the squad for this week. Would you slot Charbonnet anywhere, or am I good with Jacobs at the flex? This week, it maybe is crazy. Let me pull up the implied team totals that we have in these respective offenses. Implied team totals week 2. So right now, the Packers have an implied team total of about 18.5 points. Whereas the Seahawks are at 21. And I think with Charbonnet, you have the receiving upside as well. So I'm not going to fault you at all for going through and putting Charbonnet in there over Jacobs. Definitely we're starting Taylor. Definitely we're starting Mason at the 2 running back slots. But I love what we're doing with this team. I know it looks wacky when we look at the construction of it for everybody watching this. But this is a league where you start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. And we have those guys that we're starting in the lineup at wide receiver every week regardless. We have Wilson, we have Smith, we have Pickens, we have Reed to be able to consider there for the flex. But where we are going to find that upside is these running backs that step into starting jobs and all of a sudden can project for 20 touches. A wide receiver that's very rarely ever going to be happening with, just randomly. Where Charbonnet is a perfect example of somebody that it just happens with this week. So, honestly, love the construction. At quarterback, we have Kyler. Kyler is a borderline in terms of, if you only want to roster him, you can. If you want to roster 2 guys, you can. I think that Kyler has plenty of upside. We don't have to roster a second player. Definitely love him as a start this week. If you have another disappointing week or 2 from Kyler Murray, though, not going to panic and feel like we need to go out there and trade for a quarterback. But I do think it would be an interesting conversation to just pick up another option so we have a player to choose between the matchups with. And going over to running back, we have Taylor, we have Jacobs, the double anchor build where we can rely on these guys every week. We have Jordan Mason as well. So what I would probably do here, if you can possibly swing a trade before Sunday happens, if we could possibly swing a Charbonnet deal, with one of our wide receivers to get a wide receiver upgrade here. Like, see if we can swing Charbonnet and George Pickens to pivot up to wide receiver in the Mike Evans range. I think that would make sense because we have Mason as that startable running back every single week anyway. So if we could go ahead, if we could swing one of the depth running backs, get that upgrade at wide receiver, just have the anchors at receiver all set, and then backfill with another running back off waivers. I just love that idea. Tight end, we have Goddard, we have Parkinson. Definitely going to be rostering 2 tight ends if this is our tight end room. Does look like Goddard maybe is going to be a little more appealing this week if A.J. Brown misses. Just maybe he has a few more targets funneled in his direction. But yeah, I mean, this is like the perfect example of a roster construction you want in a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league where you're just rostering as many of these running backs as we can. And we hit on Jordan Mason, right? So we have that every week starter now. And so when we have another one of them pop off that we got off the waiver wire or maybe for free or we got at the very end of our draft, I don't mind trying to package it maybe with Kyler Murray to see if we can pivot over and get an elite quarterback here. Let's see if we can find the team with Kenneth Walker. Okay. Kenneth Walker team, where are you at? Where are you at, buddy? The Kenneth Walker team, yeah, there's no way we can go. I mean, if you could somehow magically swing Charbonnet and Kyler for Allen, we would. If you could swing Charbonnet and Garrett Wilson for St. Brown, we would do that as well. Charbonnet, Jaden Reed for Tank Dell, I think you could do that as well. Charbonnet, Dallas Goedert for Dalton Kincaid. Because if we can just continue to hit on these running backs off waivers and then package them immediately, upgrade elsewhere in the starting lineup, and allocate all our bench spots to those RBs and try to find the next guy and the next guy and the next guy and just cycle through and have the elite receivers, the elite quarterback, and hopefully the upgraded tight ends. And while all at the same time just relying on Taylor and Jacobs and Mason anyway, I think you have a great team, a great structure of this roster. And I think now that you're hitting on some of these running back depth pieces, when we have the running backs at the top already, we can kind of take advantage and see if we can make that deal. But yeah, in terms of starting Sharp versus Jacobs, I probably chicken out. I probably go Jacobs, but I definitely think it's a very interesting conversation to have. I wish Underdog would just go ahead and freaking put out the Charbonnet pick'em projections. They still have Charbonnet at 1.16x for a touchdown this week. But they refuse to put out Charbonnet rushing yardage marks. Let me see if I refresh this, if we'll get something. No, still nothing. Okay. Let's go ahead and let's move this over. And of course, real quick, if you wanted to ask any questions, you can do so over on flockfantasy.com. You can purchase a trade question, start sit question, a full-blown roster review. I will say definitely, though, the cheapest way to get a roster review is taking advantage of the offer that we have over on Underdog Fantasy. Where over on Underdog Fantasy, you can check out all these pick'ems for the games tomorrow. And if you use code FLOCK, you can get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Plus, with promo code FLOCK, you are also going to be getting a free team review through flockfantasy.com. All you have to do is make sure that you have an account set up on flockfantasy.com with the same email address that you used on Underdog Fantasy and made that same $10 deposit with. Plus, with code FLOCK, you'll get that CD Lamb free pick, more than less than half a total yard for this week as well. So make sure you take advantage of that, ladies and gentlemen. You can find that link in the description and comment section. Now let's go over to our next question. This is a trade question from Only Taryn. This is James Conner, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle versus Brian Robinson, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk. So Waddle versus Ayuk, give me Ayuk. A.J. Brown versus Jefferson, give me Jefferson. Conner versus Brian Robinson, give me Conner. If we did not have the Tua and A.J. Brown injuries, I think it would honestly maybe be the A.J. Brown and Waddle side. But post Tua injury, post A.J. Brown injury news, I think we just go with the healthy players. I think you just de-risk this. While James Conner's crushing it, and I really hope Conner stays healthy, and I really hope Benson does nothing down the stretch for the sake of myself and the Flock League. The reality is Trey Benson probably will expand his role James Conner at the end of the year is probably not going to be as good as he is right now. So if we can go ahead and if we can take advantage, I think we would. Okay. Now let's go ahead and we already answered this team. So let me answer some free questions in the live chat real quick. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Okay. Dylan, much love. My friend, I'd say that there are a ton of very good fantasy football YouTubers and streamers. I'll definitely say the Flock League YouTube channel is a lot better than this YouTube channel. At least I've been having a lot more fun with that. Obviously, I've been doing this for years, and the Flock League is a little new thing, but like whenever I drop a video on this channel, I very rarely do I ever actually rewatch it. Where when the Flock League videos drop, I literally watch them like 5-10 times over. Okay. Vidium says, I don't know about best, but top 1,000, probably. Top 1,000, top 2,000, right up there. Let's see. Sahil says, Fields or Baker as the second quarterback in a super flex. Obviously, 6-point passing touchdown format swings things in the favor of Baker. If it's a 4-point passing touchdown league where rushing upside matters a little bit more, I think I may go Fields, to be honest. Fields is a great matchup going up against Denver. And the implied team total for those respective offenses isn't that far off. It's like 4 points. The Bradenator says Mason will win the Flock League. God, there's nothing worse. As soon as I made the Hollywood trade, 2 hours later, getting the freaking Hollywood's not at practice report. The next day, getting the Hollywood is not at practice report. Then the day after, getting Hollywood hits the IR report. Literally nothing worse. Y'all know actually, there is something that's worse. What is legitimately worse than my Hollywood Brown trade is everybody in the league let Sal get Jordan Mason for free. Sal didn't have to bid for Jordan Mason off the waiver wire. After the draft, Sal just picked up Jordan Mason as a free agent. That was my bread. That was not my bread and butter. That's what I was supposed to do. I went 0 RB and I rostered as many running backs as I could on the bench with the top end receivers in the lineup. Thinking, I just got to hit on one of these guys off waivers. That guy was Jordan Mason. I completely whiffed. And oh my gosh, and in parallel universe where I picked up Jordan Mason and I did not trade for Hollywood Brown, I'm running laps around these fools. Okay. Big Worm says, change my team name in that latest review to Lamar's Donuts. Okay, let me go ahead and find that there, my friend. That helps me out so much. Thank you for letting me know. Let's go ahead and let's check out this team. I've been skipping over. I was waiting to get to it off a live stream because I thought we were having a bug with the league analyzer on flockfantasy.com. It was just a team name change. This is not Tyler's Talented Teams. This is Lamar Donuts here. My guy, thank you. Really do appreciate you. Saying, personally, I believe this is my best team. Until the Hawk Tua injury, only any thoughts and a good trade option. So real quick, this is that 10-team start 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. So the wide receiver depth here really just simply is not going to matter. And if you are looking at what we have right now, quarterback, we have a top end QB. We have Lamar Jackson. So with Lamar, obviously, don't need that backup quarterback. Love to see it. And yeah, no, this is a nutso team because going over and looking at what we have at tight ends, we have the tight end 1 in Sam Laporta in a league where you only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. You are highly incentivized to build around the elite tight ends. You are highly incentivized to build around the top end quarterback. They're going to make up a very high percentage of your starting lineup output from week to week perspective, as the wide receivers can't really, you can't fit too many receivers into your flex spot. Now going over to running back, we are currently sitting with Breece Hall, Isaiah Pacheco in the starting lineup. So we have the running back 1 in fantasy, and then we have a solid RB2 here as well. Going down beyond this, we have Jalen Warren, Jerome Ford, Zach Charbonnet, Tyler Algier. As a side note for this team, I would go ahead and I'd play Charbonnet in the flex spot this week. I would put him in over Warren. I'd put him in over Ford. But obviously, we have the running backs that can help us out in the short term, such as Jerome Ford. And we have the long-term upside pieces here at the same time. Going over to wide receiver, the Waddle injury definitely knocks this team down. I think that's maybe why we are here 4th in the league analyzer, even though if you look at the top 3 teams, teams 2 through 4 are all about the same. Team 1 actually has a decent lead over everybody. What does Team 1 have? Okay, Team 1 somehow has Lamb, Cup, Taylor. So, yeah, they pretty much just hit on Cooper Kupp. That's what it was. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think that we would be even higher if it wasn't for the Tua injury here. And the wide receiver depth, having Pickens, Ridley, I think it is a fine spot. JSN was that sell high guy going into the season. Now you definitely need to be holding on to JSN. I think Mike Williams, good report that we got from Saleh saying that he's going to have that expanded role in week 2 in comparison to what we saw in week 1. Overall, it's a strong squad. Trying to go through and think if there's anything that we could possibly do. I like what we're doing with the roster construction as well. Just rostering as many of these running backs and wide receivers as we possibly can, rather than focusing in on tight end, focusing in on quarterback. Typically, I'll know I maybe prefer rostering more running backs than receivers in a league where you can only start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. But because you're so strong with running backs at the very top, I think that you're right to just roster the same amount of both positions. I think Ridley is a potential sell high candidate for us. It just makes things difficult with the Waddle injury. If you could somehow pivot from like Ridley and Waddle over to like Deebo Samuel and just not have to worry about it, I think that could also be an option for us. But obviously, it's just going to be difficult to convince somebody to buy Jalen Waddle at this point. Smith looks like he's hopefully going to crush with no A.J. Brown here. Like I said, I think Ridley would be that main piece that I'd probably be looking to sell with this team. I think running back, you're good, where you don't really need to make a 2-for-1 trade there. I mean, if you could get a great price where you could sell Ridley and Pacheco and get Kyron and get Jonathan Taylor, get Achane, get one of those running backs, and obviously it's a no-brainer, but I'd imagine that's maybe a little bit tough to do. But if not, like I said, I think maybe if you can go like Ridley and Waddle and pivot over to like Deebo, maybe pivot over to like Harrison, I think that could be interesting as well, post-Tua injury. But yeah, there's not much we can say because you already have quarterback, tight end down on lock. And then obviously we have the anchor RBs at the top. But really do appreciate you, my friend. I am super sorry that I had to skip over this team a couple times. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out into the live stream and correct me on the team name here. I'm definitely going to make sure I talk to the developers about this instance. And just to confirm what happened here is it's that the team name that was submitted did not update automatically when the team name was updated on ESPN. I think on Sleeper, it updates automatically on flockfantasy.com, but it looks like it's not doing that on ESPN right now. But much love, my guy. Really do appreciate you. Really hope I was able to help you out in some way here as well. But let's go ahead and let's dive into this next question. This one's going to be a start-sit question for Michael Paz. It says, start J.K. Dobbins or Zach Charbonnet. I know people are going to hate to hear this. I know Dobbins is a better matchup. If it's a full PBR format, I think Charbonnet has the receiving role. I think Charbonnet has a higher percentage of his backfield than J.K. Dobbins does his. Like, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Zach Charbonnet over J.K. Dobbins here. Can y'all spam the chat? I want to see how many people agree with this. Would you rather have Zach Charbonnet or J.K. Dobbins? Much love, Jermaine. Much love. Okay, Dobbins, Charbonnet. Dobbins, Dobbins, Dobbins. Sharp, Dobbins. Sharp, Dobbins, Dobbins, Sharp. Dobbins, Sharp. Dobbins, Sharp, Dobbins, Dobbins. Dobbins. So it does look like most people are in on Dobbins. I think Dobbins definitely is the better matchup. I just think that Dobbins is going to have to split a tiny bit with Gus Edwards. Or I don't think Charbonnet is going to split at all, really. Now, Zachary Link, happy to see you, my friend. You know you can always just message me. You know I'll get back to you. So, hey, so a few players were missing when I tried to add the starting lineup. If you have also, my guy, if you have any issues with the site, for the love of God, message me so I can make sure we iron those out for you. Wide receiver 1, Rashee Rice, flex Jaden Reed. So I unfortunately kept CMC in the first this year. I have Warren or Spears to choose from week to week until he returns. I have Shakir, Palmer, Polk, Douglas on the bench as well. So let's see. Who do I start between Warren and Spears this week? I think we're going to go ahead. I think we will take Jaylen Warren and hope that he has a larger role coming back from the hamstring. Also, do you think we should look for a better option while CMC's out with Love into it? Yeah, my guy, if it sounds like you're just kind of in a tough spot when it comes to your overall running back depth, I think you're just kind of stuck just going through and taking Jaylen Warren. And hopefully we can hit on somebody off waivers. But if we had those injuries elsewhere as well, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher to go through and make that deal to solve the running back situation. Yaboyski says, I deposited $10 Underdog with code FLOCK on both Flock and Underdog. How long until a free team review, or will they connect? So let me just explain this in depth real quick. So instructions, super simple. Just use promo code FLOCK on Underdog, make a $10 deposit. That same day, make sure you just have a free account on flockfantasy.com, set up with the same email address. Every morning, Underdog sends me a list in a CSV format of all the email addresses that signed up to Underdog Fantasy with code FLOCK and made a $10 deposit from the day before. I take that CSV list, I upload it on flockfantasy.com, and we get everybody who everybody that has an account with that one of their emails a free team review voucher. So it's the following day, my friend. It's the following day. As long as you listen and you made the $10 deposit and you set up an account on flockfantasy.com that day with the same email address. Now, let's go ahead. This is Goldhammer says, so I'm in a super flex league and I'm trying to three-peat. Dear God. I have Dak, Cousins, Baker, Kyron, HM. Let's see. If you link your team for me, my friend, I can just see all your players there. But the person I'm trying to trade with is panicking hard on Harrison. To try to talk him into throwing Mason in, who he has as well. Do we take Kyron out of the deal? So let's see this. So going from Kyron to CMC is a downgrade. Collins to Harrison's a lateral move. We're paying Connor to do it. If this is a dynasty league, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. for me. If it's a redraft league, it's Kyron, Connor, Collins. If you were to get Jordan Mason on this side of the deal, then I think you can go ahead and take the CMC side. But without Jordan Mason, it's the Kyron side. If you take Kyron out, then it's the CMC side again. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the Kyron side here. We are going to take out Kyron on this side, mark this as the winner. And then here for config 3, you didn't link, so I can't add Jordan Mason. So we're just going to leave it like this. But hopefully that made sense. Hopefully that made sense, my friend. Let's move this over. Connecticut, happy to see us. Is having trouble trying to decide who to start this week in the wide receiver slots and the flex. Was offered Stroud for Brandon. Would that be a good deal? You're saying Brandon Ayuk? I would rather have Brandon Ayuk over CJ Stroud here, my friend. This is a phenomenal team, though. Yeah, St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, automatic starts. Running back, we're going to go with Najee in a good matchup against Denver. Javonte looks unstartable at this point. Hopefully that changes. I really hope that changes. Definitely going to go Baker over Caleb there. And then for the flex spot, oh my gosh, wait, we had Cooper Kupp on this team as well? Okay, yeah, you definitely want to trade a wide receiver for a quarterback. I would try to trade Ayuk for Allen. I would try to trade Ayuk for Hurts. I would try to trade Ayuk for Lamar. I understand the Stroud thing when you're this strong at wide receiver. But yeah, I think you maybe just need a little bit more. But this is a nutso lineup. Another thing you could look to do is try to trade Ayuk and Najee in a package deal. But I really like Ayuk. I think maybe you go Evans and Najee to get a running back upgrade. Now, next question coming out from Luke says, hey, Mason, feeling good about the team, but having some questions about the team this week. Going up against a strong team, so I need all the help I can get. Love the website. Sorry if I'm not using it right. I'm sure I'll get the hang of it by the end of the season. Thank you. No, thank you so much, my friend. And I'm sure, yeah, the first time that you go through and navigate, maybe it's a little bit tougher to do. But, yeah, looking at the flex spot, you didn't link the players that you have here. Luke, is there a chance that you're in this live chat right now and you can let me know who you're considering? I think the starting lineup looks extremely strong. Did you link anything? No. But, yeah, so next time, if like this is exactly how you want to do it. If you're asking like a flex question, right? You can say like, hey, this is my starting lineup. If you link your team, it will just automatically load all the leftover flex options that you have. If you're manually filling this out and you don't want to link your team, then instead you can just go through and manually put, hey, I'm considering Ayuk and Evans. You know, you can just put those two players there and I can click between them. Luke says, I'm here. Yes, I post another one. My bad, man. No, just let me know right now in the live chat who you're considering for the flex. And I'm sorry, like I said, I understand first time that you use the tool, it's probably a little bit tough. What I need to do tomorrow is I need to just go ahead. I keep on saying that I'm going to do it. I need to make the tutorial for everybody on the site because I know that we just have rolled out so many new updates and so many different tools and stuff that I haven't updated the tutorial in forever for everybody. Yeah, Luke, just please let me know in the live chat what players you're considering right now. Okay. Christopher says, I have Mixon and Taylor and Chubb on IR. Should I trade away Jordan Mason? Depends on the price point that you could get. I mean, if Jordan Mason looks like he's a viable flex play for you right now, you don't necessarily need to. Danny says, the value you can get after these 2 weeks would be crazy. Looking for Gibbs and a piece. Need an RB2. If you're saying that, I don't know if that's regarding the Jordan Mason question. If you can sell Jordan Mason in a bench piece and go get Jamar Gibbs, then 100% you go make that move. Then 100%. Okay. It seems like Luke isn't letting us know in the chat the flex guys he's deciding between. Big Worm says Swift, Scary Terry, Cooks in the flex and a 10 team. I would go Scary Terry. Brandon Cooks may be a little more appealing when you have no Ferguson because you're going to see the expanded target share. But I think I do go Scary Terry. There, my guy. Luke says I'm considering Dobbins, Leonard, Kamara. Considering Ayuk is at receiver. Okay, so yeah, I think we keep Ayuk over London. Between Dobbins, London, and Kamara, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Kamara if it's a full PPR format. I do think the Saints definitely come back down to earth, though. I mean, right now, if you're looking at the spread on that game, right now the Saints are actually like 7-point dogs. But at the same time, I mean, obviously you have the receiving upside with Kamara, so it doesn't matter as much. This is coming out from Dez, says, the CMC owner would be getting their precious Jordan Mason. I'm hurting with the loss of Puka. His original offer was Olave, Madison, or Leggett. I wanted Coffer to add in Ridley or Brian Thomas instead. I think you can ask for more. I don't want to mark that as winner. I do think the winner is probably the Olave side. But if you're dealing with the CMC team, I think maybe you ask for Brian Thomas and Calvin Ridley. If he accepts, cool. If he doesn't, then you can go ahead and say, okay, I'll just take Brian Thomas. Okay, so let's answer some free questions in the live chat real quick. If you had any questions in the chat, please go ahead and drop them right now, and we'll try to pull them up. Enzo says, how much fab for Gus Bus, 12-team non-PPR? Non-PPR, Gus, definitely a little more interesting. Very difficult for me to tell you an exact fab number. Whenever we are waiting for... to know who you're going to drop, right? Like that's what one thing I like about the site is we can just see so much more information. Like fab is definitely a more nuanced thing where it's going to be wildly different team to team what you're willing to spend in terms of your budget. Todd says 18-team league, who is Mason's handcuff? I can go ahead and pull this up for you. Sal actually just dropped Tyler Algier in the Flock League for him. I picked him up to block Thomas, my week one opponent who had CMC, from getting him on Monday night. Okay. I pulled this out. I pulled Sleeper up and saw the most. Do y'all want to see the trade offer that Danny sent me? I pulled this up, and just to ruin my day, somebody sent me. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. Ramondre, they want my Ramondre Stevenson for their Alexander Madison and DeMarcus Robinson. Okay. I see how this is going. I see what's up here. But yeah, it's Isaac Grindo. Rookie, not a super exciting prospect, went extremely late. But with Elijah Mitchell on the IR, he is kind of the penciled-in guy if Jordan Mason were to go down. Okay. Christian says he mentioned it at the start of the stream. He said, "Wait till you see." Dear God, I'm about to. Yeah, I'm gonna rip into him after this live stream. Can y'all help me for that? Can everybody in the chat spam FSE sucks? Can y'all please spam the chat FSE sucks? And let's see if I can get a clip recorded here. FSE, not C. FSE sucks. Just opened up the most disrespectful trade offer I've gotten my entire life. I showed the live chat and that this is the reaction here. That well deserved as well. Well deserved. Okay. I was friendly with y'all up until this point. But now it looks like the alliance that Flock and FSE had, it's maybe over. It's so damn disrespectful. Okay. Had to get that for the Flock League. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But let's see if we have any more questions in the chat. Let's scroll back for a while, see if we find anything here. Pizza Taco says, who won trade? I traded Mahomes and Likely for Collins and Kelsey. You won by a mile, my friend. I'd rather have Kelsey over Likely. I'd rather have Collins over Mahomes. Prince says, pick up Tom Brady and offer it to him. Yeah, pick up Brady. Offer him Brady for Nico Collins. Okay. Nick says Burrow or Baker Mayfield. Interesting question. I'm an idiot, so I probably go Joe Burrow. I have a hard time moving on from it. A little bit of a hard time moving on. Okay, Luke says, would you start Goddard over Likely now that AJ won't play? I definitely think Goddard gets a bump up. But honestly, I would still probably go Likely. One thing that I want to ask y'all is how much higher, let's update the rankings on the site right now. Under the assumption that AJ Brown is going to miss here, I definitely need to be moving AJ Brown down our rankings this week. I think we move AJ Brown down just because I want him in a range where people have to really think if they're going to roll the dice to start him Monday night. If I was going to roll the dice to start him, the option would have to be like AJ Brown versus Deontay Johnson. These are the weekly rankings, of course, not rest of season. How much higher does Devonta Smith go? I think Smith jumps Evans. Smith jumps, actually, it's hard for him to jump more. More, you have Rome and Keenan both potentially out. Would you rather have Smith or DJ Moore this week? Just this week, who would you start between DJ Moore and Devonta Smith? Leonard says Tyreek's back at the top, but that he moved down. These are the weekly rankings. These aren't rest of season. And obviously, Tyreek Hill having him ranked at wide receiver 1 this week did not look good. But I don't want to go through and say, oh, he didn't score points on Thursday, so let me move him down. I don't want to act like I'm trying to cover my tracks there. Looks like everybody's on Smith over DJ Moore, even though you have potentially no Rome or Keenan. What about Smith or Rashee Rice? Would you rather have Smith or Rice this week? Because obviously Rice is in a great spot. And I mean, we saw the role last week. Smith, Rice, Smith, Rice. Draco says, not going to lie, that's tough. Everybody's saying Rice now. Yeah, it looks like we're going to probably leave him here. It's tough. I am hoping Devonta Smith is the wide receiver one. I'm going to fill you all in. Here's what I'm planning on doing in the Flock League this week. Tomorrow, I have a bet now going with Nathan. Like, I need to win this. Since I've talked so much smack in the Flock League now, I need to win this week. I need to win no matter. I need to win. If I start off 2-0, I don't care if I score the second least amount of points this week, as long as Nathan scores the least amount and I can win this week. If I start off 2-0, the shenanigans that I can pull over the weekend and next week will be nuts. Like, what I'll probably do is I will probably go buy a Devonta Smith jersey at the mall, and I'll probably just wear it all week. And then also with the bet we have, Nathan would have to do something very embarrassing, which would be really funny. Okay. Josh says Fields or Caleb Williams. This week, definitely Justin Fields. I mean, this week, Caleb's dealing with injuries throughout his entire wide receiver core. And at the same time, Fields has a great matchup going up against Denver. But let's pull up. I don't think we have too many more questions on flockfantasy.com. So, of course, if you want to guarantee to get any questions answered, guaranteed to get a free team review, anything like that, you can purchase team review over on flockfantasy.com. Definitely the cheapest way to get a team review, however, will be over there on taking advantage of our promo with Underdog Fantasy. If you click the link in the description, comment section, or live chat, you will get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 with promo code FLOCK. Plus, you will get this free CeeDee Lamb pick, more than less than half a total yard. And on top of that, you'll get a free team review over on flockfantasy.com as well. Just make sure you have a free account set up on the site with the same email address that you used on Underdog. But let's go ahead. I think we actually already answered this question for Luke in the chat. We will do it again. But I think, yeah, for the flex spot, my guy, we are going to go ahead. We're going to take Kamara over London and over Dobbins here. Now, our next question coming out from JL says, I'm unsure of the flex, leaning towards flexing Dobbins and Worthy and sitting Najee Harris. So wide receiver, definitely want to go Lamb, Wilson, running back, Jones, Mason. Okay, so it's really, are we going to go Najee Harris or Xavier Worthy? That's the question here. If I'm looking at my flex rankings this week, they weren't too far off of each other. Obviously, Worthy is in a good spot with no Hollywood. Najee is in a great matchup going up against Denver. I definitely would prefer to go Najee over Dobbins. So honestly, I'm kind of going to go Najee here regardless. I think the main question is Dobbins versus Xavier Worthy. I'm not going to mind benching Worthy coming off a week where he had 3 targets. Definitely think a player that is very exciting in the long term. And now that Hollywood's not coming back, definitely a wide receiver that I walk it back. I know I said a sell high, but it looks like it's a... Trust me, I did not know that Hollywood Brown was going to be out for the year. I thought Hollywood was going to be back this week or next week. That was the information that we had on Sunday. Things change. I think Worthy's a very exciting long-term upside play, but I think we take the running backs with the volume and good matchups this week with Dobbins and Najee. Now, only Taryn coming out with our next question says, already have Ayuk. Would you send these 2 Niners for Gibbs? I think we go with the Niners. I think Debo has so much value, and Mason projects as that low-end RB1 right now that I think you just go all in with the best offense in the NFL with the San Francisco 49ers, and you don't necessarily need to make this upgrade. I mean, maybe in a couple weeks, if CMC is a little closer to returning, then we do it. But for the raw amount of points you're going to get with Jordan Mason right now, I don't think you need to. Now, Brazy coming out says, sorry about the formatting on the trade question. I submitted both before I realized the issue. Want to know your thoughts with the injury developments. Opponent has Mahomes. Going to be excited to go ahead and check this out for you, my friend. And yeah, we can just go ahead and fill this entire lineup out. I think Jahmyr Gibbs, must-start guy. I don't know if you started Devon Achane. I'm going to submit the starting lineup as if Achane's on your bench. Now, obviously, if you started him, you will look to go with one to fewer of these players, which we'll talk about that instance. I hope you started them. And going over to receiver, we're gonna go Chase. I'm gonna assume you started Waddle. I'd be very surprised if you benched Waddle. HN, I wouldn't be that surprised if you benched. And then for the flex, I think with the news that we have regarding Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet is actually gonna be one of my plays here. And then if we started Devon HN, obviously we are done at this point. But if you did not start HN, then I think we also go ahead and we take Drake London. London, my friend. Now, we will complete that. And it's about to be midnight. So what I'm probably going to do here, ladies and gentlemen, I have the energy to keep going for another couple hours for this stream. But I'm going to want to wake up in about 6 or so hours so I can get a live stream started for y'all extremely early tomorrow morning, answering as many questions as we possibly can. So yeah, make sure come out to the live stream tomorrow morning. I'm going to stream every single day, obviously, through the entire year. So if you're not already subscribed, I don't know how, make sure you subscribe. And like I said, you can purchase any questions through flockfantasy.com. Even if you're not there during the live stream when I answer, you'll still get a link with the exact timestamp whenever I answered your question. So you can see that clip whenever I talk about it. The software will send you my answer as well if you filled it out with your team. So you can purchase a question on flockfantasy.com, whether that's a start sit question, a trade question, a roster review, literally at any time in or out of the live stream, and you're going to get that answer sent right to you. And also, I will remind you, the cheapest way to get that roster review is by taking advantage of that offer that we have with Underdog Fantasy. Code FLOCK. We give you a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000, a CD Lamb special pick, more than less than half a total yard, and a 50% deposit, and that free team review over there on flockfantasy.com. Just make sure you have that email address on flockfantasy.com, matching the email address that you have on Underdog Fantasy, so I know which account to credit the free review with. But thank you again. Really do appreciate y'all, ladies and gentlemen. And really hope I get to see you out with the live stream tomorrow morning.